My parents said my younger sister is ungrateful and won't give her a single penny in the future. Without any discussion, they directly transferred $20 million to me. The transfer included a note stating, "Voluntary gift." 2 days later, on February 28th, I was invited home for dinner. The moment I saw my sister, I was shocked. Her face was covered in scars. Not only that, but she was also limping. Just as I was about to ask what happened, she stared into my eyes with a frenzied look and shouted, "Tenfold system, activate." A wave of dizziness washed over me. My sister transformed into an ethereal beauty, and her lame leg instantly healed, yet my face was covered in scars, and I became crippled. To make matters worse, my bank balance was mysteriously wiped out in an instant. "Vera, it's here, haha, 206 million, Mom and Dad shouted excitedly. He looked down at me lying on the ground with contempt. This broke-ass loser only saved up a little over 60 grand after working a whole year. Afraid I'd spill the truth, they knocked me out and sold me into the mountains. After finding out I wasn't a virgin and had a nasty disease, a violent maniac beat me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in my rented apartment's bed. My phone lit up with an incoming WeChat call from Mom. My eyes instantly welled up, and I clenched my teeth so hard they nearly cracked. It took me a full 2 minutes to compose myself before I called her back. "Hello, Mom, you little rascal. Why didn't you answer the phone for so long?" My father, off-screen, must have reminded her to watch her tone. She finally reined in her temper and said to me, "We're at the ICBC on Twangia West Road. Come over here right now." I sneered to myself. Here we go again. The same old story from my past life. "Okay, Mom, I'll be right there." Then I started casually browsing the web. 2 hours later, I finally showed up. "Mom, Dad, why did you ask me to come to the bank, you little brat, making us wait here for 2 whole hours? I ought to slap you silly. In my past life, I would have just taken it without a word. But in this life, I won't be that pitiful fool begging for family affection anymore." When Mom came at me in a rage, I pulled off Master Ma's move, catch, neutralize, but held back on the counter. Didn't want to knock her out. Grabbing her arm as she swung with all her might, I twisted it deftly and pinned it behind her back, pulling her into a gone-with-the-wind embrace. At the same time, I poured out my heartfelt words. "Mom, I know you're upset, but just take a breath first." What the me? Mom wanted to launch another attack, but realizing I had her firmly locked, she suddenly felt a bit awkward. I quickly changed the subject. "Mom, Dad, what did you call me here for?" "It's all because of that ungrateful daughter Vera. She's always fooling around and talking back to us. We've decided she won't get a single penny from us. From what I remember of my past life, my sister might not have been fooling around, but she definitely got into trouble. Otherwise, she wouldn't have caught those nasty diseases." My mom put on a show of being upset, but her eyes were full of adoration. How did I not see through such a terrible performance in my past life, when I was born? Our family was just getting started. They were both too busy to take care of me, so they sent me to live with my grandmother in the countryside. I barely saw them once a year. It wasn't until I turned 6 that they had my sister. Now that they're successful, of course they're raising my sister themselves. Realizing they had another child who was already 6 years old, I was eventually brought back to the city. I now suspect that if my younger sister hadn't been born, I probably still wouldn't have been brought back. Some kids in the village bullied me. When my grandmother confronted their parents about it, she ended up getting hit on the head and bleeding. I called my mom and dad, and their response was, "Stop causing trouble and making things difficult for us." From that moment on, I learned to endure in silence. Even when I was mistreated outside, I never said a word about it to my grandmother. This shaped me into an introverted person who was afraid to speak up. Back in the city, my parents looked at me, shabbily dressed and timid, with clear disdain and displeasure. My mother curled her lip and said to my father, "Look at the child your mother raised, reeking of the countryside. Don't you dare tell anyone she's my daughter when we go out." To win their affection, I did as much housework as I could. By the time I'd mastered all the skills, preparing my sister's milk, changing her diapers, cleaning her up, and putting her to sleep, my parents handed all these tasks over to me. At night, my sister would cry her lungs out, while my parents snored like thunder. I was the only one taking care of my sister day and night. It just goes to show, the more you endure, the more you'll have to endure. The more obedient and sensible you are, the more you'll be taken for granted. One time our parents took us to the amusement park. I said I needed to use the restroom, but my little sister kept whining to ride the bumper cars first. Without a second thought, our parents decided to do the bumper cars. After 10 minutes, my sister still wanted more and threw a fit until they let her go 2 more times. By the time they came back, my pants were already soaked. Humiliated by the snickering stares from passers-by, my dad slapped me across the face. "From now on, I'm out of the loop when it comes to fun outings." I snapped out of my thoughts. "Mom, Dad, I know you're just saying that out of anger. Please don't transfer the money to me. I really can't accept it. As usual, I played it meek. We're giving you this money, and you're taking it whether you want to or not. Mom's voice grew shrill. No, I can't accept this. I firmly refused. The moment the words left my mouth, my mother swung a sharp slap toward me. Without a word, I crouched down and tightened my already snug shoelaces. A stinging slap landed squarely on my father's face. You son of a... My father started to lash out, but upon seeing my mother's murderous glare, he swallowed the rest of his words, grinding them down and choking them back. He was clearly growing impatient. Aurelia, listen to your mother. Let's hurry to the bank and get the transfer done. I knew they wouldn't let it go unless I accepted their money. Besides, I've already come up with a solution. So I dutifully provided my bank card number, after getting my card details. The two of them went straight to the VIP counter to proceed. Ding, a notification alert sounded on my phone. 88 million deposited into my bank account. What's going on? Last time it was only 20 million. How did it jump by 68 million this time? Before I could figure it out, another message came through. It was a notice. This transfer is a voluntary gift. Mom and Dad insisted that the clerk add this, too. It dawned on me. They must be worried this money won't count as my personal assets. You've really gone to great lengths to scheme against me. After they tied me up in my previous life, I overheard many of their secrets. My sister's tenfold system allows her to lock 3 of my attributes, multiply them by 10, and then swap them to herself. However, there's a catch. Her own corresponding attributes must not exceed mine. If even one attribute fails to transfer, all 3 locked attributes remain with me. Multiplied tenfold, she directly bound my looks, health, and wealth. She originally wanted to bind someone else, but the system prompted, only blood relatives can be bound, so she had no choice but to pick me, to lose to me in looks. She scarred her own face and bought me top-tier skincare products, to lose to me in health. She deliberately broke her own leg and engaged in improper relations with unsavory people, contracting a nasty disease, to lose to me in wealth. She had her parents transfer 20 million to my name. I thought my parents' entire assets were just 20 million, but it seems they have quite a bit more than that, don't they? What I didn't know was that this time, my parents not only liquidated all their assets, but each of them also took out exorbitant high-interest loans. This way, my assets would inevitably surpass my sister's, and once the system completed the exchange, everything they transferred to me would multiply tenfold, for what seemed like a guaranteed win. They didn't hesitate to borrow money without a second thought. My father said earnestly, Aurelia, even though we're giving you this money, you must spend it wisely. Remember, constant dripping wears away a stone. Mom said with genuine emotion, Victor, what are you talking about? I've watched Aurelia grow up. She's never been the type to spend money recklessly. I get it, even though you've given me the money. I won't squander it. It's still your hard-earned cash, after all. I nodded obediently and said, Don't worry, Mom and Dad. I know you've both worked hard for this money. I won't waste a penny. Yeah, right. Though those 2 words were left unsaid, now that the money has been transferred, I've decided to set my plan in motion. In this lifetime, I'll make everyone who ever hurt me pay the price. Aurelia, where are you going? Mom grabbed my arm firmly. Today is February 26th. Just like in my previous life. These 2 are determined to stick to me like glue, preventing me from harming my appearance and health, and keeping watch to stop me from spending money right under their noses. I hired 10 elite bodyguards through my phone, 6 men and 4 women. Who would have thought? Elite female bodyguards aren't any cheaper than their male counterparts. Their starting rates are even higher. I went for the top-tier package, of course, at $35,000 per person per month. 10 bodyguards came to $350,000. It's not my money anyway, so I didn't feel the slightest pinch spending it. A WeChat friend request from someone named Captain Blake came through. I accepted it immediately and changed the contact name to Colleague Blake. Colleague Blake, hello Miss Aurelia, my team and I have arrived at the specified location. Me, send up 4 female team members. The rest stay on standby in the vehicle. Colleague Blake, got it. Knock, knock, knock. I immediately walked over to open the door. 4 well-dressed women stood outside the door, chatting and laughing. Aurelia, sis Aurelia, wow, the way they're talking, you'd think they were sisters from different parents with how chummy they are. They're clearly professionals, must have reviewed my file before coming. Aurelia, who are all these people? My mom shot up from her seat the moment she saw the crowd, her expression shifting uneasily. I chuckled, they're all my colleagues. Just here to hang out. My mom subtly shot my dad a look, thinking no one noticed, but all 5 of us, myself included, cut it instantly. 3, it's like when you're playing Honor of Kings, thinking you've stealthily slipped into the bushes for an ambush, but actually, us sneaky veterans have been camping in the next bush for ages. I specifically noted to the security company that I need protection from my own family, so they're paying extra close attention to my parents' every move. Ahem, my dad cleared his throat. As you can see, Aurelia's rental is so cramped, there's hardly any room for you all to sit. No worries, uncle, let's just go sit on her bed. With that, all 5 of us girls squeezed into my bedroom. Tina, grab the playing cards from the table. Let's play Fight the Landlord. Sure thing, Valerie. All right then, I've committed 2 names to memory right away. Tina, Valerie. I couldn't help but admire these bodyguards' intelligence and emotional intelligence, no whispering among themselves. No evasiveness, just straightforward self-introductions. While playing cards with them, my mind was elsewhere because I had no idea what my parents were scheming at the moment. Sister Valerie picked up on my unease and discreetly pulled out a tablet with headphones. Every move my parents made was clearly visible on the tablet. Then she quickly typed on her phone, "Time to use lunch" as an excuse to send us away. Sure enough, before long, there was a knock on my bedroom door. Aurelia. "What are we having for lunch?" Mom's voice came from outside the door. I could hear the suppressed anger in his voice, but I pretended not to notice. "Mom, you and Dad go ahead and eat first. I'll take my sisters out for a meal later." My mom immediately objected. How could she possibly let me slip out of her sight? She quickly added, "You're Dad and I can't cook either. It's always the housekeeper who prepares our meals. We'll go out to eat with you, inside the Jinxia room at the Imperial Hotel." After confirming no dietary restrictions with a few people, I confidently ordered the Chinese deluxe set menu. I was about to order a 1992 Lafite. Only 200,000 bottles of the 1982 Lafite were produced, yet over 300,000 have been sold in China. Just then, my mom started lecturing me. "Aurelia, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but Aurelia, let's skip the wine. Yeah, none of us like that stuff. It's way too sour." It just occurred to me that the ladies aren't allowed to drink while on duty. My mom trailed off mid-sentence, and my dad breathed a sigh of relief on the other side. The courses were brought out one after another: lobster, abalone, sea cucumber, you name it. To be honest, this is actually my first time having a 5-star hotel feast. The 5 of us were thoroughly enjoying the meal, while the other 2 were eating with gritted teeth, in the private room next door at Qinglan residence. 5 well-trained young men with crew cuts glanced at the lavish spread on the table. Then at their team leader, who was relishing every bite, exchanging uncertain looks and hesitating to pick up their chopsticks. "Boss, are you sure our meal is being reimbursed?" Bodyguard Xiaobei still couldn't quite believe it and wanted to double-check. Blake's chiseled face tightened as his sharp eyebrows arched. "If you're too scared to eat, then starve. The rest of you, hurry up and finish your meal." "Yes, sir," the group responded in unison, their voices booming so loudly it nearly lifted the roof off the private room. Hiss, the room filled with the sound of sharp, collective gasps. Each person got another smack on the head with a silver spoon. Blake's face darkened in frustration. "We're here to protect the boss discreetly." "Do you even understand what discreet means?" Everyone was about to shout "got it" in unison, but upon seeing the captain raise his spoon, they instantly lowered their volume, barely vibrating their vocal cords, and let out a voiceless "got it." The Jinxiaoxian private room. My parents had stern expressions the whole time. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't force even a fake smile. They often have meals that cost 30,000 yuan, so they weren't fazed by the expense. But if I were the one eating that 30,000 yuan feast, they'd immediately think I wasn't worthy of it. I could just picture their inner monologue. "Damn, when I splurge on a meal it's 30k, but you little brat, your 30k meal today will cost us 300k in 2 days. I hope you choke on it." After stewing over it, my mom finally snapped and pulled me aside. "Aurelia, we just talked about being frugal. How could you drop over 30,000 on a single meal? Yeah, with the measly salary you make. How long would it take you to even earn 30,000? My dad chimed in. I threw up my hands. "So it's my fault now. Honestly, Mom and Dad, I should just transfer the money back to you. I don't want it anymore. It's better for you both to keep control of your finances." "Absolutely not. That's..." My mom's sharp voice was cut off mid-sentence by a hard slap across her face. My mom was completely stunned. When she finally processed what happened, she flew into a rage. "Victor, how dare you hit me?" My dad puffed out his chest and retorted, "Who says I wouldn't dare hit you? What's the big deal if my daughter spends a little money on a meal? Hilda, let me tell you, we'll spoil our own daughter if we want to." "Dad," I gratefully hugged him, trying hard to squeeze out a tear but failing after several attempts. My mom was quick to react too, quickly comforting me. I didn't say anything against it. If our child wants to spend, let her spend, after paying the bill. I left without provoking them further and headed straight back to my rented apartment. My parents were hinting at leaving again. "Aurelia, it's getting late, don't you think?" "Oh right, it is getting pretty late." "Mom, Dad, why don't you head back first?" My parents, is this silly girl failing her reading comprehension or what? I glanced at the flimsy single bed in our cramped rental apartment. This tiny bed won't fit all 3 of us. Mom and Dad fell silent, after a long pause. They finally managed to say, "We'll take the sofa." Absolutely not. I struck a dramatic pose like the classic Zue, "Don't leave" meme. I could never let my dear parents sleep on the couch, so I settled my parents in the single bed, while I took the bodyguards, my older brother and sister figures, to stay at a hotel. Left alone in the rental unit, the two of them exchanged bewildered glances. My dad quickly called the head of security at his company. "Hey, keep a close eye on that damn girl and report her whereabouts to me at all times." About 10 minutes later, a video call came through on my dad's phone. The screen showed security Captain Ben's face after connecting. He said urgently, "Boss, I lost track of the target, useless, idiot," at hashtag $%*. Ben was practically scolded into silence. He was also frustrated. He'd been tailing the target perfectly, but then a Buick GL8 suddenly cut in front of him and crawled along at a snail's pace. The green light still had over 10 seconds left, but the Buick's slow pace left him stuck with a red. With his boss breathing down his neck, he floored it and ran the red light to catch up. The traffic cop on duty signaled for him to pull over, but he kept going. At the next intersection, he was stopped by several motorcycle cops. "Darling, why does everything feel so off in this lifetime? So many things are different from our previous life." My father nodded in agreement, his forehead creasing into deep frown lines. "Last time around, that damn girl's colleagues never showed up at our door." My mother gasped sharply, her voice filled with concern. "You don't think that wretched girl has figured something out, do you?" "Impossible, absolutely impossible. Only the three of us know about Vera's system. There's no way that damn girl could have discovered it." Little did they know, their every move was being wiretapped and streamed live to the control tablet. Inside the hotel's presidential suite, Sophia couldn't help but chuckle as she watched the surveillance feed. Her laughter broke the ice, and soon the others joined in with unrestrained guffaws. It was like a scene straight out of a war movie, where the Japanese commander whispers to his troops, "Stealth mode, everyone, no shooting." The village chief and little soldier Zhang Jie nodded in agreement behind them, muttering, "Yash." The scene cuts back to the rented apartment. After finding out I wasn't at the apartment, Vera sent a video call request. "Mom, Dad, what's going on? How could you let him slip away?" Vera's scarred face twisted into an even more menacing scowl. "Come on, Vera, don't panic. We can't possibly follow her everywhere she goes, can we? That would just make her suspicious." "Exactly, Vera. She's just a naive little girl who's never seen the world. She barely spends 100,000 a day. What's there for us to worry about?" Hearing her parents' words, Vera's expression finally softened a little. Among all of them, she was under the most pressure. If the system exchange failed, her parents would at most lose some money, but she stood to lose everything. That's why she couldn't afford to be the slightest bit careless. She's been glued to her phone these past 2 days, anxiously checking for any transfers from Aurelia before the system exchange goes live. If she actually sends the money, our entire plan will fall apart, and worse. Aurelia would walk away with a massive windfall. That simply can't happen. After ending the video call, my dad made a few phone calls and managed to track down which hotel I'm staying at. "Colleague Blake, boss, the car with 4 tails is parked outside the hotel too. No worries, just a few dogs. Don't bother with them." Blake glanced at his team and said, "Keep a close eye on them. If they dare approach the boss, take them down, but no lethal force." The remaining 5 replied in a hushed chorus, "Yes." The next morning, Mom and Dad came to see me with dark circles under their eyes. Looks like they couldn't get used to my hard, narrow bed. Another day of indulging in food, fun, and leisure. I went on a shopping spree at luxury stores and ended up spending just over $1.5 million. My parents lived grim the whole time. They went all in, hoping to maximize their profits. Little did they know I'd be this reckless with money, spending without a second thought. Every purchase felt like a stab to them. Their facial muscles were twitching so violently, you'd think they were having a stroke. The pleasant day has finally come to an end, and tomorrow I'll have to face my sister for real, in front of Vera's family villa. I saw her sharply chiseled face again. If you didn't know better, you'd think she'd been through a shredder. Even if she didn't carve up her face with a knife, she still couldn't match my looks. Even if she avoided catching a nasty disease, I'd still be healthier than her. She degraded herself to such an extent, all driven by her twisted jealousy and malice, wanting to hoard every advantage for herself while leaving none for me. "What happened to your face, sis? Who the hell did this to you?" 5. I raged, though the suppressed merry laugh that followed gave away my true feelings. Otherwise, I would have kept up the act. Heh. My sister's maniacal and twisted laugh sent a chill through the air. Her eyes burned with fervor as she stared at my flawless, porcelain face. "Sis, do you know what day it is today, little sister? It's the day of the 7-star alignment. Do you realize what that means? It means my tenfold system will activate, and you'll lose everything." My eyes darted nervously. Have you lost your mind? I'm your sister, your own flesh and blood. Shut up. Who gave you the right to call yourself my sister? You're just a pathetic nobody that nobody loves. I turned to look at Mom and Dad behind me. Mom, Dad, what is my sister saying? Has she lost her mind? Ha ha ha. To my surprise, both of them let out a bone-chilling laugh at the same time. Mom, you little bitch, you jinx. If it weren't for getting pregnant with you. Would your father have cheated? Would that old witch, your grandmother, have nagged me non-stop? Would my father have died? My eyes widened in disbelief as I stared at Hilda. Are you kidding me? Victor cheated because he has moral flaws. My grandma scolded you because you have character issues. My grandpa's car accident happened because of his drinking problem. Why don't you just blame me for earthquakes, typhoons, and floods too? Hell, I single-handedly started the Iraq War. I'm wrong. I'm guilty. My counterattack was as rapid and sharp as machine gun fire, leaving Hilda speechless. She suddenly stopped talking, thought carefully, and realized, damn it, all these accusations could actually be pinned on me. While Hilda was lost in thought, Victor snapped. He zeroed in on one key point. You little brat, who are you saying has no integrity? I rolled my eyes so hard they practically disappeared. Dad, are you seriously that bad at reading comprehension? Did you not hear me specify the subject? My dad, that's you, the little sparrow I'd always picked on suddenly turned into a full-blown eagle, realizing he couldn't win the argument. My dad lunged at me with a heavyweight slap. But come on, your wind-up for that punch was so slow even Shaq's grandma could have dodged it. Okay, I pulled the same old trick again, bending down to tighten my shoelaces. Smack. My mom, who had been gloating with schadenfreude, took a slap right to the face. Spun 180 degrees on the spot, and collapsed. Victor missed his first strike but was already raising his hand to hit me again. I wasn't even worked up about being hit, but Vera was already furious. Her looks were about to become 10 times better than mine. How could she just stand by and let me get beaten? Vera shot a disgusted look at my mom on the floor and my stunned dad, then cautiously checked her phone to confirm it was safe. Tenfold system, activate. A familiar dizziness washed over me. And then I saw Vera enveloped in a divine golden light. Her face was the first to transform. The scars that once marked her skin began to flake away like fragments. I wanted to step closer to witness this miraculous sight, but found myself completely unable to move. Before long, my sister's beauty and vitality were restored. A woman of breathtaking beauty, like a celestial maiden descended from the heavens, appeared before me. Her eyes sparkled with life, captivating and radiant. Her every movement exuding grace. Her long, straight legs were perfectly sculpted, with elegant curves, firm and shapely. Though it wasn't the first time I had seen her, her stunning, almost otherworldly beauty made me feel utterly inadequate. At that moment, I lost my balance and fell to the ground. My body could finally move again, and I knew the exchange, beauty for health, was complete. Now I've become both hideously ugly and lame. Are you, my sister? I asked in disbelief. That's right, sis. And I should thank you, she replied playfully, her voice now as melodious as a heavenly chorus. Why would you thank me? I asked, puzzled. Because now I have 10 times the beauty and health that you do. Vera's bell-like laughter echoed through the air, no longer carrying the previous sinister eeriness. Even the grass in the villa courtyard seemed to dance with joy. Ha ha ha. My sister's voice reverted to a somewhat hoarse ha 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 again. She hurriedly tried to cover her mouth with her hand, only to freeze in shock as she realized she couldn't move. A divine golden light shimmered in her starry, brilliant eyes. I was bathed in a golden radiance. Soon after, with a soft thud, my sister regained her ability to move. Looking up again, she saw the same breathtakingly beautiful face I had seen earlier. His chiseled face cycled through expressions of envy, confusion, shock, anger, and disbelief. A truly spectacular display. Even an actress of Oscar-winning caliber couldn't switch emotions so swiftly and authentically. Ding. System notification. Exchange failed. Host's assets exceed those of the bound target. Aurelia. Ding. Task failure detected. System unbinding automatically. Good luck and farewell. No, please don't go. I'm begging you, don't leave. My sister even dropped to her knees, clasped her hands together, and repeatedly knocked her forehead against the hard floor tiles. Within moments, her head was bleeding profusely, and she collapsed to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut, completely drained of strength. As the bound entity, I naturally heard the system's notification tone, just as I had in my previous life. Sister, you never should have. How could you even think of harming me? You've brought this suffering upon yourself. My sister stared in horror, shaking her head and murmuring, no way, it's impossible. I can't be richer than you. You have 88 million. And I'm even in debt with a loan shark. I should be the poorer one. I handed a document to Vera. I bought you an 80 million trust fund. In 50 years, you'll reap the benefits of the trust. Oh wait, no, the moment you activated the system just now. That trust fund should have vanished. Sure enough, when I checked, the trust was gone. A bank notification had been sitting in my unread messages. I opened it and saw an 800 million deposit. My sister's eyes widened, her finger trembling as she pointed at me. You knew all along, didn't you? I flashed a charming smile and said, take a guess. Then I turned around and walked away, leaving my family with a glimpse of my effortlessly cool silhouette inside the Buick GL8 parked nearby. The moment Blake and the others waiting in the car caught sight of my breathtaking beauty, they froze as if someone had hit pause, their jaws dropped so wide you'd think it was a still frame, if not for the drool dripping down. Holy shit, Shabe yelped in pain as the cigarette butt burned his finger, jolting the others awake. Ahem, Captain, Miss Aurelia seems to have gotten way prettier all of a sudden. How'd she do that? Leo blurted out what everyone was thinking. Blake was pretty shocked too. But he played it cool and said, some things are better left unknown. 6. As I was about to leave, Vera shouted sharply, Mom, Dad, you can't let her go. Only then did Victor and Hilda realize their entire fortune was tied to me. In a flash of understanding, they lunged toward me, but they crashed into a solid wall of people, landing hard on their backsides. Blake and the others gave them no chance to get near me. Blocking them immediately, Victor cried out desperately, Aurelia, Aurelia. I was wrong all these years. Please forgive your father, won't you, Aurelia? Even Mom admits she was wrong. You can't just abandon us. My voice turned icy cold. The moment you allowed Vera to steal everything from me, you ceased to be my parents. From the instant you sold me off to those remote mountains, you became my enemies. You actually came back to life. Hilda stared at me in disbelief, as if she'd seen a ghost. Don't you dare bother me again, or I won't hold back next time. Oh no, it's all over. Our money. My mother's hysterical shriek echoed behind me. It's all your fault, you little wretch. If it weren't for you, why would I have mortgaged the villa and taken out a 20 million loan? And you witch, poisoning the relationship between me and my daughter. I turned my head and only saw Vera and Hilda on the ground, covering their faces. How dare you hit me? The two of them froze for a moment, then suddenly lunged at Victor, clawing and pulling his hair. Watching the loving family brawling with each other, I got into the car and said, let's go, Valerie, it's over here. I went back to my rental, packed my things, and moved straight into my newly purchased spacious apartment. I didn't like living alone in a huge, empty villa. It felt too hollow. Just a few days later, I received a call from the court. Hello, Miss Aurelia. I'm from the Jiangqing XX court. Your father, Victor, and mother, Hilda, are suing you for unlawfully obtaining 88 million yuan of their property. Please appear in court in 2015. You just won't give up. If you want to take this to court, then so be it. I hired the best lawyer to handle the lawsuit against him. He was the one who initiated the transfer, and I have recorded evidence, combined with the voluntary gift notation after the transfer. Victor Hilda stands no chance of winning the case. I returned to my hometown. Brought my grandmother to live with me for a better life, changed both her and my phone numbers, and I no longer wish to have any contact with Vera's family. Vera's family of 3 gathered all their aunts and uncles to confront me, but Blake and his team intercepted them. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Blake approached me with his team and said, Miss Aurelia, your bodyguard service contract with our company expires today. I was taken aback for a moment before I finally remembered the matter. After spending a month together, I really can't bear to see these genuine and lovely people leave. Why don't you just come work at my company? Valerie, Tina, Sophia, and Mia were clearly tempted. This was the most relaxed, enjoyable, and fulfilling protection mission they had ever carried out, but they soon smiled wryly. Since when does a tiger need a pack of wolves for protection? Miss Aurelia could easily take on all 6 of those grown men, including Captain Blake, and he was the only one who could even put up a fight, and now you're telling me you need protection. Yeah, right. They all exchanged uneasy glances until Valerie finally spoke up, scratching her head awkwardly. Aurelia, to be honest, this is the first time my paycheck has ever felt this undeserved. You should really let us protect someone who actually needs it. The rest of them nodded vigorously in agreement. I never expected Vera's system to be this game-changing. After my health increased tenfold, my strength, agility, and stamina reached unprecedented levels. Watching them leave reluctantly, I suddenly felt an emptiness in my heart. Blake kept looking back several times with a hesitant, shy expression, which left me completely baffled, just when I thought everything was settled. Victor and Hilda somehow managed to track me down again. It was as if they knew the bodyguard had left. They showed up just as I was about to head out with my grandmother. Victor immediately called out to me, Aurelia, my child. Hilda grabbed my arm abruptly. Aurelia, Mom and Dad have already apologized to you. What more do you want? What more do I want? I shook off her hand. Don't touch me. I don't have a mother as vicious as you. Hilda flew into a rage instantly. You think I'm vicious? I gave birth to you. Who do you think you are? Acting all high and mighty, with that. She shoved me hard, clearly intending to make me tumble down the stairs to my death so that she, as my immediate family, could claim my inheritance. I pulled the same old trick, tying my shoelaces. Hilda shoved her grandmother with all her might. Granny tumbled down the stairs, blood streaming from her head. With her pre-existing heart condition and that brutal fall, she was pronounced dead before even reaching the hospital. The police reviewed the hallway surveillance footage. Hilda was taken into custody on suspicion of intentional homicide. Victor was also detained, but since he wasn't involved in the altercation, he was released shortly after. I quickly arranged my grandmother's funeral, then took her ashes and scattered them evenly into a foul-smelling ditch. Mabel, I hope you don't mind being laid to rest in a sewage ditch. After all, you two were cut from the same cloth. Birds of a feather flock together. In my past life, after escaping from the mountains, I realized the village I'd just left was actually near my grandmother's house. Stumbling and exhausted, I rushed to her place and told her everything my parents and sister had done to me. I thought she would help me call the police to bring those monsters to justice, but instead she drugged me and called my parents to come get me. When they showed up, I was devastated. I couldn't believe my own grandmother, the person I trusted most, had betrayed me without a second thought. In that moment, my heart shattered completely. I felt not a single shred of attachment left for Vera's family. In this lifetime, she betrayed me for her son once again, but I couldn't care less. All I wanted to do was shout, "Hail the ascent of Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Be a better person in your next life." Back in the neighborhood, I kept feeling like someone was tailing me, but whenever I turned around, there wasn't a soul in sight. Just as I pulled out my keys to unlock the door, I suddenly heard footsteps behind me. I spun around just in time to catch a heavy blow to the head, and everything went black. When I came to, I found myself lying on a worn-out bed. I knew this bed all too well. It was where I'd endured endless humiliation, physical torment, mental anguish, and utter despair in my past life. Now I'm back. But this time the tables have turned. 7. Dylan's perverted gaze roamed over me without restraint, like a filthy pair of scissors scraping against my skin, making me deeply uncomfortable. The corners of my lips curled slightly. "Hello, Dylan. It's good to see you again. Interesting. You know me?" Dylan stared greedily at my face. I knew exactly how much temptation it held for him. "I don't see any fear in your eyes. Why aren't you afraid, as a seasoned deviant?" He relished the fear of the vulnerable most. If his victims showed no fear, it was as bland to him as a dish cooked without salt. "Why should I be afraid?" I retorted, curling the corner of my mouth. Dylan grinned brightly. "Because you have no idea what's coming for you." I smiled back, even more brightly. "Seems like you don't know what's coming for you either." With that, I slammed my fist into his chest, sending him flying 3 meters back. Dylan was thrown backward like a cannonball. Thud. He crashed into the wall, bounced off, and a visible dent caved in on his chest. He couldn't hold it back. A mouthful of blood sprayed out. That punch felt like a purification spell. The lewdness in Dylan's eyes vanished. The perversion disappeared. The cruelty faded, and the smug mockery was gone, leaving only pure, unadulterated fear. "Please, I beg you, spare me." I shook my head with a faint smile. Not a chance. To this monster, my smile must have seemed like the grin of a demon. His voice trembled. "Just end me." I shook my head. "Not a chance." He struggled to lift his arm, reaching for the fallen dagger, but I stomped on his hand. Crack. The sickening crack of bone echoed through the room. Dylan gritted his teeth so hard they nearly shattered, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead, yet he refused to make a sound, denying me even a sliver of vengeful satisfaction, clinging to dignity that had long ceased to exist. In the end, though, he failed. When subjected to the same brutality he'd inflicted on others, Dylan became just as broken and pitiful as his victims. His screams grew so unbearable I had to stuff a filthy sock in his mouth to dampen the noise. From afternoon until the break of dawn, I stayed awake through the night. In the end, Dylan became nourishment, silently sustaining the flowers, plants, and trees that blanket the mountains and fields. I picked up my phone, found Vera on WeChat, and sent her a message. "Sis. Dad said your mom's child was someone else. That's why he ended up siding with me." 2 days later, I saw the news. Woman stabs father 36 times before calmly taking her own life. At last, everyone who wronged me has faced the consequences they deserved. With more money than I could spend in a lifetime and superhuman abilities, I thought I had no desires left, until I watched Wonder Woman. Only those who have endured darkness themselves would think to light a lamp for others. I became a spirit of the night, dismantling one human trafficking ring after another, rescuing hundreds of women and children whose suffering mirrored my past life. I've come to realize that my own strength is still too limited. The phone rang. It was Valerie. "Aurelia, we want to join too." They had seen multiple news reports where the rescued described their savior as a flawless, fairy-like woman. Others might not know. But how could Valerie and the others not recognize who it was? My eyes lit up instantly. You're most welcome. Story 2. On the day our sect chose spirit beasts, my junior sister snatched away the fortune-stealing beast that was rightfully mine. This mystical creature could siphon others' luck to enhance itself, growing ever more dashing and charismatic. In our past lives, though she possessed greater cultivation skills, I became the sect's darling by riding the fortune-stealing beast's coattails. While she suffered ridicule for being accompanied by that hideous luck-collecting beast, at the sect assembly, she stabbed me through with bitter resentment, eyeing my spirit beast with undisguised greed. A worthless trash like you deserves death. How dare you own such a magnificent spirit beast? When I reopened my eyes, I surrendered the luck-devouring beast to her triumphant glare. Then I scooped up that oddly shaped fortune-gathering beast from the ground instead. Little did she know. The luck-draining beast feeds on its master's fortune. Whoever becomes its master is doomed to be a loser. The day junior sister Quinn bound me in the woodshed with her spells was when our sect chose spirit beasts. By the time I broke the spell and rushed over, Quinn was already cradling the spirit beast the sect leader had chosen for me. The sect master frowned deeply at her while the surrounding disciples buzzed with whispers. Wasn't the spirit beast originally chosen by the master for senior sister Vesta? True, but it seems junior sister Quinn will be claiming it now. Typical of her, always coveting what belongs to others while neglecting what's rightfully hers. She triumphantly cradled the spirit beast in her arms, eagerly showing it off to the crowd. What do you mean stealing? Choosing spirit beasts has always been first come first served. If the senior disciple slacked off, that's her own fault. Besides, if the master didn't favor her so much, with her mediocre skills, how could she possibly deserve such a fine spirit beast? That's what she claimed, though everyone present knew Quinn was truly the sect leader's final disciple. The sect leader's favorite is obvious to all. 1. Knowing this full well, she became utterly lawless after her rebirth, even going so far as to trap me with an array formation. Quinn grew up by the sect leader's side, surpassing me in both cultivation talent and martial skills, yet despite my mediocrity, I inexplicably received far more favor than she ever did. In the sect, I'm the revered senior sister everyone respects, while she's just the bratty junior everyone avoids. That's why she couldn't stand me outshining her. To make matters worse, the sect leader assigned her a grotesquely ugly spirit beast while mine was majestic and radiant with energy. Consumed by envy, she simply had to steal it. The sect leader's expression darkened, yet he still spoke to her gently. When choosing a spirit beast, its ability to aid your cultivation matters most. Appearances are merely superficial. Quinn, don't squander the care I've devoted to your training. As he spoke, the sect leader glanced toward the spirit beast originally selected for Quinn, but she showed him no courtesy. A worthless creature without even decent looks. What good could it possibly be? Fine, you're playing favorites, master, but don't expect me to back down. She squared her shoulders defiantly at the sect leader, radiating the same bratty energy as her unspoken challenge. Try and stop me from taking senior sister's spirit beast today. I dare you. The sect leader's bias was obvious to anyone with eyes, just not in my direction. For once, without another word, the junior sister callously forced a binding pact with the spirit beast in her arms. Consequences be damned. The spirit beast materialized before her, stunning everyone in an instant. True enough, he stood tall and graceful with jade-like features. He knelt devoutly before his junior sister, not even sparing me a glance. Since Lysander has formed a pact with you, master, I'll never pledge allegiance to another. I shall belong to you alone. His words rang with such sincerity and charm that the crowd was utterly captivated. Yet Quinn's lips curled into a vicious smirk as he stared at me with open defiance. I watched Lysander kneeling in silence. He did appear every bit the picture of steadfast devotion, but I knew better. It was all an act. In my past life, after swearing fealty to me, he'd spun the same honeyed lies. I too once believed I'd met my destined spirit companion, showering him with kindness at first, only to realize the bitter truth later. His actions never matched his honeyed words. The sect leader was right. Appearances are but skin deep. Everything he displays now is merely a facade. I let out a long sigh under Quinn's challenging gaze, silently marveling that in this lifetime, the tormented one was finally no longer me. When the sect leader stormed off in anger, and fellow disciples dispersed in small groups after watching the spectacle, only then did I quietly step forward. In the corner, the spirit beast originally chosen by the sect leader for Quinn was trembling where it crouched. When it saw me approaching, tears welled up and spilled all over the ground. When I reached up to pet its head, it only nuzzled my hand hesitantly, as if in disbelief. Though grotesque in appearance, it was remarkably docile and obedient. Chuckling, I gave its head a good scratch. Ask it, little spirit companion, are you still in need of a master? To my surprise, within just half a day of Quinn bringing Lysander back, the two had already begun dual cultivation. Soon enough, Quinn's spiritual energy overflowed throughout the entire sect, showing clear signs of cultivation mastery. When the two of them reappeared, the sect members' attitude toward Quinn had indeed undergone a dramatic shift, as expected of the sect master's disciple, junior sister. When you master your cultivation techniques, don't forget to give us senior brothers some pointers. Even the finest spirit beast deserves a worthy master. We were blind to your true worth before. Junior sister, please don't think us narrow-minded. Some people aren't fit to be mentioned in the same breath as our junior sister, even if you tried to elevate them. Quinn absolutely thrives on this kind of trash talk, especially when it's dripping with sarcasm aimed at me. She arched her brow smugly, leaning in close to my ear with a mocking tone. Heard you picked up that useless spirit beast I discarded. Senior sister, talentless people stay talentless. After all, senior sister, every saddle fits its horse. I must say, you and that unwanted ugly creature are truly a perfect match. With Lysander by her side, her years of being overlooked were completely transformed. In her mind, she'd finally become superior to me in every way, and couldn't wait to flaunt it. Unfortunately, she failed to notice the uncontrolled spiritual energy leaking from her core. She probably mistook that overflowing spiritual energy as a sign of her cultivation breakthrough. Only I knew it was actually the medium Lysander used to siphon her life force. That idiot actually let her guard down completely around Lysander, becoming his cultivation fodder in no time. In our past life, Lysander also rushed to demand dual cultivation with me right after forming our spiritual bond. After rejecting him with the excuse of needing time to build feelings, I accidentally discovered his true nature. He's a luck devourer. The name itself is utterly deceptive. When I first brought Lysander home, I thought he merely absorbed people's misfortune. Little did I know, he actually cultivates his power by feeding on others' fortunes. Gradually I realized the deeper our spiritual bond grew, the faster he drained my yin energy to fuel his yang. This explains his particular obsession with dual cultivation. In our past life, merely forming a cultivation pact with him left me utterly drained. Before I could even refine the spiritual energy gained through daily meditation, Lysander would siphon it away. My cultivation was weak, and gradually he grew dissatisfied with the status quo. He drained my spiritual energy while calling me worthless. He sought dual cultivation partners. Once spiritual roots merged, he could freely plunder their destiny. When I refused, he desperately sought other targets. In the end, he set his sights on Quinn, the junior sister who'd always been at odds with me. Then one day, returning from cultivation practice, I walked straight into Lysander tangled with Quinn on my own bed. Quinn's bare shoulder peeked through her robes, her gaze dripping with undisguised provocation. Senior sister, if you won't savor such delights, don't blame me for taking them all, soon enough. Word spread like wildfire through the sect about Quinn's scandalous dalliance with my spirit beast. The entire sect regarded her with contempt, and her already tarnished reputation sank even lower. Back then, she'd come to visit Lysander daily despite the gossip, while I still held out some hope of steering her right. Junior sister, Lysander isn't as innocent as he appears. You must learn to see through facades. She glared at me with her chin held high. Just because the sect is blind doesn't mean those close to you are. Lysander and I are the only ones who truly know you. Why bother playing games with us? Little did I know, this well-intentioned warning would ultimately lead Lysander and Quinn to conspire against me, with fatal consequences. At the sect assembly, Lysander, who was supposed to be my spirit companion, suddenly turned against me, channeling his spiritual energy toward me. In the end, the two of them joined forces and struck me down on the spot. Only then did I realize Lysander's ambitions had long spiraled beyond control. When I opened my eyes again, I didn't even glance at Lysander. A treacherous creature like that should have been cast aside long ago, but this little one following behind, frowning at the spirit beast trailing me with tears pooling on the ground, I sighed again. After finally seeing off the formidable Lysander, I never expected to pick up such a pitiful little thing. It was terribly timid, covered in wounds both large and small, with several gashes marring its face. They say its gentle nature made it an easy target for other spirit beasts' bullying. In its past life with Quinn, it barely registered as a presence at all. Quinn's flamboyant personality clashed with its meekness, and its odd appearance became an embarrassment. Naturally, it received no kindness, but now that it's formed a pact with me and acknowledged me as master, I'll honor my obligations as its keeper. Healing magic was the most fundamental spell in our sect. Yet Quinn had never taught it to him. When I personally guided him through the technique, he actually grew excited. If Eldrick masters this, could he heal Master's wounds in the future? His eyes shone with such brilliance that I suddenly froze in place. My cultivation level is modest, and Lysander has always left me far behind. Though he's supposed to be my spirit beast, he looks down on my mediocre talents, too. All he does is take, never fulfilling his duties as a spiritual companion. I'd almost forgotten that a spirit companion's true purpose is to protect their master. Despite his peculiar appearance, Eldrick proved surprisingly gifted in cultivation. Within mere moments, he'd absorbed everything I taught him with remarkable ease. As his wounds began to heal, my eyelids grew heavy and finally closed. Today drained me completely, leaving what little spiritual energy I had nearly exhausted. so I missed witnessing its gradual transformation into human form. Unlike Lysander's alluring aristocratic aura, he was serene as a forgotten mountain spring, seemingly born solely to nurture all living things. From beyond my sight, he gently draped a coat over me, his voice like mist drifting through clouds. "Fear not, my liege, I won't let anyone bully you ever again." Ever since Quinn and Lysander began their dual cultivation, the sect has been buzzing with fresh gossip about them daily. Just today, Quinn and Lysander were seen bathing together in the hot springs. Rumor has it their spiritual energy surged so powerfully after dual cultivation that it enveloped the entire mountain peak. Such energy overflow is common when cultivation reaches perfection. Lately, whispers have even spread through the palace gates that the junior sister might ascend to immortality with her spirit beast. Eldrick and I were practicing our cultivation techniques when we heard the news. He pursed his lips, hesitating to speak several times before swallowing his words at the sight of my composed expression. "Are you wondering why I chose you over Lysander?" Eldrick lowered his head slightly, caught in his thoughts. "My lady has her reasons." I patted his head and said, "Cultivation begins with character. In my school, you may take your time mastering techniques, but moral discipline is non-negotiable. Those who betray their principles will always become menaces, no matter how powerful they grow. They'll inevitably seek greater power at any cost." Lysander stands as proof, and that's precisely why Lysander has always dismissed me as some ambitionless good-for-nothing. The ends justify the means. That's Lysander's survival strategy, not mine. Eldrick nodded with vague comprehension at my words, then suddenly chuckled. "Why fret, master? Greed devours itself." With Lysander by Quinn's side, ascension is beyond her reach. Her fortune will unravel thread by thread, becoming nothing but nourishment for Lysander's cultivation. I wonder if she'll still be able to smile when that time comes. With the spirit beast by my side, I devoted myself wholeheartedly to cultivation. My cultivation has improved remarkably these days, and even my previously blocked spiritual energy has been restored by Eldrick's nourishment. When I asked Eldrick about it, he only managed a weak smile. By the time March passed, I could already channel the spiritual energy effortlessly when sensing its fluctuations again. Before I could even investigate the reason, Quinn had already barged in with Lysander in tow. Brimming with arrogance, she radiated an even more ethereal aura than before, her body pulsating with spiritual energy, glowing with vitality. Lysander followed close behind, fingers poised as his spirit blade unsheathed. With just one move, Eldrick was sent crashing to the ground, completely caught off guard. Frowning, I helped Eldrick up while Quinn's face displayed undisguised mockery and smugness. "I've tested it for our senior sister. The spirit beast chosen by the sect leader handles like a dream, but our lucky senior sister could make trash seem like treasure. Getting this useless thing to block a couple strikes shouldn't be a problem." Quinn was in high spirits after Lysander's move, itching for action even more. With the sect tournament approaching and senior sister just emerging from seclusion, surely you wouldn't refuse if I sought some pointers. The moment I left seclusion, she came probing my capabilities. Lysander went a step further, delivering a humiliating opening blow to Eldrick. At this point, her intentions were crystal clear to me. She wanted to humiliate me before the entire sect during the grand tournament. Just as I frowned and was about to refuse, Eldrick suddenly stepped forward and grasped my hand. "It's merely a sparring match, master. Wouldn't you like to gauge your current cultivation progress?" Eldrick knew perfectly well that spiritual cultivation couldn't be transformed overnight, yet we'd only been in seclusion for 3 months. How could he possibly rival Quinn all of a sudden? I stared into Eldrick's eyes in confusion, but he just flashed me a sly grin and silently gave me encouragement. Pausing, I realized that in just 3 months, he'd become completely different from when he first acknowledged me as his master, so I turned around and firmly took his hand. "Well then, since junior sister has spoken, the senior sister certainly won't hold back," though I'd boldly made those boasts riding on Eldrick's coattails. But when Quinn drew his sword, I couldn't help poking Eldrick's arm. "Are you asking me to agree because you've already figured out how to handle this?" He pressed his lips together and gave a firm nod. At that moment, he looked so tall and dashing, I confidently charged into battle. It was over in just 5 moves. Quinn and Lysander basically taught me how to be human all over again. Can't beat them, seriously can't. Still can't win, but I can clearly feel myself improving. After cycling my spiritual energy 3 times, Quinn and Lysander couldn't gain any advantage over me anymore. My rapid progress visibly unsettled Quinn during our sparring sessions. Eldrick and I flanked Quinn together. Her impatience left her defenses wide open. Seizing the opening, I channeled spiritual energy straight toward her face. Quinn recoiled in panic, but I merely smirked as my palm transformed into a blade mid-strike. Lysander broke free from Eldrick's grasp just before her composure shattered. A backhanded slap sent me flying halfway across the field. Then he helped the kneeling Quinn to her feet, soothing her wounds, though Quinn escaped danger thanks to Lysander. She immediately came to taunt me once safe. Trash will always be trash. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be more than dirt beneath mine and Lysander's feet. At the sect assembly, I'll make sure everyone watches as I grind you beneath my heel. Her words came through gritted teeth, face twisted with bitter resentment. None of her usual composure remained. Overwhelmed by emotion, her spiritual energy surged forth uncontrollably. Watching Lysander's face twist with greed, Eldrick and I exchanged knowing glances, sharing a conspiratorial smile. This sparring match was never about defeating her, it was designed to rattle her composure. When emotions run high, spiritual energy leaks most easily, and Lysander would harvest every wisp of that escaping power without fail. Though the sect still unanimously proclaimed her destined for ascension, the truth of her fortune lay within herself. She couldn't possibly remain unquestioning. Sure enough, Quinn quickly noticed the overflowing spiritual energy, his smirk freezing midair. Lysander didn't even bother hiding anymore. He greedily devoured every wisp of Quinn's leaking energy like a starved beast. Even after draining it dry, his hungry gaze lingered on Quinn's depleted spiritual field. He was still famished, given his current appetite. The meager spiritual energy Quinn just expelled was but a drop in the bucket for him. Quinn once possessed formidable spiritual power, yet even the mightiest energies could never satisfy Lysander's insatiable hunger. Lysander's gaze shifted back to me. His eyes gleamed with undisguised avarice as he appraised my spiritual field. On my way down the mountain for supplies, he followed me stealthily before seizing me in his arms when no one was around. "Elder Marshal sister, you smell divine." I was utterly startled and tried to break free, but he shackled me tightly, refusing to let me escape. "After being stuck with that filthy wretch for so long, you must be starving. Elder Marshal sister, senior sister, you've been overshadowed by Quinn every single day. Don't you want to experience being the sect's darling for once? I can make that happen for you." Disgusted beyond measure, I replied with a cold laugh, "You've already formed a pact with Quinn. Are you seriously considering betraying your master?" 3. He shrugged nonchalantly, "Just a cultivation contract. Senior sister and I merely practice dual cultivation together. Her pact holds no power over me, so this was how he tricked Quinn into dual cultivation with him in our past life. I thought once Quinn practiced dual cultivation with him in this lifetime, he'd stop pestering me after achieving his goal. Now I see he'll truly stoop to anything for the sake of cultivation." I shoved him away forcefully, dripping with disdain. "Does Quinn know you're this desperate on a daily basis?" His gaze faltered momentarily. With his radiant, moonlit beauty, he had always been praised as the epitome of charm and romance. Never before had anyone dared to belittle him like this. "Senior sister, so many disciples in our sect desire to cultivate with me. Don't be ungrateful." When gentle persuasion failed, he seized me in a fit of humiliated rage, dragging me straight into the underbrush. I slapped him hard across the face, only to realize the filthier my insults became, the more excited Lysander grew. Forcing myself to calm down, I followed Eldrick's teachings to completely seal my spiritual energy within my body. When the energy reached my dantian, I opened my eyes and struck Lysander's chest with a focused palm strike. Lysander never believed I could harm him. He flew backward from me completely unprepared. Blood sprayed from the corner of his mouth in a long arc, his eyes widening in disbelief as he stared at me. Just 3 months ago, I was still a talentless cultivator with parched spiritual roots. "You've been dual cultivating with Eldrick, haven't you?" he suddenly asked me in horror. "You actually dared to dual cultivate with that hideous freak?" I frowned as I watched Eldrick arrive and kick the absent-minded Lysander to the ground. The moment I spotted Lysander, I sent Eldrick a distress signal. True to form, he came right on time. But trailing behind Eldrick was a furious Quinn. "Ungrateful wretch. Have you forgotten who tore you away from that magicless waste in our past life? A spirit beast that betrays its master deserves death the most. Spit out every ounce of spiritual energy I've fed you right now." I collapsed where I stood, utterly stunned by Quinn's sudden outburst. So I wasn't the only one who'd been reborn. Eldrick stepped forward to help me up, then carefully examined me from head to toe. Only after confirming I was unharmed did he help me up. Then, with rare intensity, he channeled all his spiritual energy to form a barrier between Quinn and me. "Master, I promised I wouldn't let anyone hurt you again." Calm and composed, he countered every move, leaving Quinn unable to gain any advantage. Left with no choice, they turned their accusations toward Lysander. Watching them tear into each other like rabid dogs gave me some vicious satisfaction. The next day, rumors spread through the sect that the junior sister intended to sever her spirit beast contract. From that day onward, the ethereal grace that once surrounded Quinn vanished without a trace. Only then did the sect members realize with a start that their junior sister's spiritual roots had long been completely drained. Overuse had rendered her meridians incapable of storing spiritual energy. The overflowing spiritual power they'd witnessed wasn't a sign of ascension, it was the last remnants of her cultivation. All of this was Lysander's doing. Quinn only knew Lysander as a luck-devouring beast that could temporarily boost her powers. What she didn't realize was that this creature simultaneously drained its master's fortune. Whoever becomes its master will have their spiritual energy completely drained, eventually reduced to utter worthlessness. The moment she tasted the thrill of her newfound power in her past life, she couldn't wait to cut me down at the sect gathering. When reborn on the day of spirit beast selection, she chose Lysander without hesitation again. She thought everything was under her control, dreaming she could always outshine me across lifetimes. But when her spiritual energy began dwindling, Quinn grew increasingly uneasy. It wasn't until that day when she arrived with Eldrick and uncovered Lysander's true intention to betray his master. Only then did she realize Lysander had never truly needed her. From beginning to end, all he coveted was her divine fortune. Though slow to awaken to the truth, she proved just as shameless as Lysander himself. She quietly turned her attention back to Eldrick, remembering how in her past life she'd had an obedient little spirit beast of her own. One day after being summoned for a reprimand by the sect master, I overheard my fellow disciples whispering among themselves on my way back, with the sect master backing her. She can do whatever she pleases, even swapping spirit beasts on a whim. Eldrick belongs to the head disciple. This isn't a swap, it's outright theft in broad daylight. That's when I realized the sect leader had summoned me deliberately to buy Quinn time to seek out Eldrick. Just as everyone assumed Quinn would successfully replace her spirit beast, I kicked her door open with my flying sword. Quinn, who once found Eldrick repulsive, now clung to him desperately. "If you come back to me, I promise I won't despise you anymore. Isn't that enough? Looking like this, you're lucky I'm the only one willing to rescue you from that useless senior sister. Stay away from her, stick with me, and you'll see what a sweet deal you're getting." Eldrick remained completely unfazed, even struggling vigorously to break free from her grasp, yet Quinn clung to him like a stubborn burr that couldn't be shaken off. "He's nothing like the docile companion I know," his tone dripping with hostility. "You're the one who should back off. Keep your filthy hands to yourself. You're making me sick." Eldrick had always played the fragile role around me. This was the first time I'd heard him snap. A rare smile of approval finally found its way to my face. The moment he saw me, those teary puppy dog eyes reappeared. "Master, save me." He withdrew the spiritual energy he'd just summoned, genuinely waiting for me to rescue him. I flashed him a smile and answered solemnly, "All right, then." Wielding the sword with Eldrick's vengeance in mind, she struck at Quinn without mercy. After days of training, Quinn finally saw some progress, but without Lysander by her side, her spiritual energy waned within just a few moves. The crowd within the sect gradually grew, their scattered whispers once again weighing on Quinn, relying on the sect leader's favor to act recklessly. I thought she was something special, so all the sect's treasures were lavished on her. And this is what the sect leader has to show for it after all these years, a complete waste. Did you see how senior sister dismantled Quinn? She didn't even stand a chance. Absolutely satisfying. Quinn's greatest fear had always been losing to me, and hearing the sect disciple's words now sent her spiraling further into turmoil. When Eldrick and I knocked her down yet again, she clenched her fists so hard her knuckles turned white, grinding her teeth in fury. The spiritual pact reversed violently, sending her crashing to her knees as she coughed up a spray of blood, while Lysander descended before her with eerie grace. The contract between Quinn and Lysander remained unbroken. Whenever she called, Lysander would inevitably answer, yet this time she showed Lysander not the slightest courtesy, outright usurping his authority to issue commands. "Kill them all." No. Lysander remained motionless. He was no longer the spirit beast that once relied on Quinn for cultivation, for he had completely drained Quinn of all his fortune and vitality. The current Quinn held no more value to him whatsoever. Just like my past self, merely a master in name, Quinn suddenly snapped out of it, his face darkening in an instant. She rushed forward and slapped Lysander hard across the face. "I told you to kill them. Are you deaf? Remember our contract. Don't forget who truly owns you now." Consumed by rage, her spiritual roots unleashed their final vestiges of fortune through her hysterical screams. Then came absolute stillness. Without hesitation, Lysander wrung the last drop of value from her. There's no denying Lysander made the right choice. Compared to my previous life with withered spiritual roots and mortal wounds, he certainly found himself an excellent master this time around. No one knew that Quinn, the junior sister doted on by the sect leader, was actually his illegitimate daughter. The sect's endless stream of treasures always flowed into that junior sister's hands alone. Gifted and fortunate, she should have been the most blessed soul in the sect, yet in the end, it all became another's triumph. Lysander has grown even more formidable than in his previous life. She long lost any standing to negotiate with Lysander. A mocking smirk curled his lips as he raised his hand, with effortless ease. He shattered the contract binding Quinn, just a worthless piece of trash. "I'm giving you the privilege of serving me, shouldn't you be groveling with gratitude?" Now the master-servant pact with Quinn was mere parchment without power. He couldn't even be bothered to pretend anymore. The contract backlash struck instantly. Quinn barely had time to scream before the agony knocked him unconscious, yet Lysander, who should have been the subordinate, didn't even emit a ripple of spiritual energy. "You worthless trash dare aspire to be my master." With a sinister curl of his lips, he locked eyes on me and uttered just 4 words, "You're coming with me." It wasn't until he dragged me to the place where we'd made our pact in our past life that I realized what he intended to do. He casually tossed Quinn to the ground, his eyes once again burning with undisguised desire. "She was the one who killed you in our previous life, Master. I'm simply avenging you." His eyes inexplicably took on a bewitching crimson hue as memories from both lifetimes crystallized in my mind. He extended the invitation once more. "Master, after all this effort, can't you see my sincerity?" His address made me sick to my stomach, yet he kept up his hypocritical performance. "Master, I know you've been reborn too." He pointed at Quinn's limp, unconscious form on the ground, proudly displaying his handiwork. "Last life she called you trash, so this time I'll turn her into trash. She killed you in your past life, so in this life, I'll kill her. Master, I've been dutifully avenging you. Won't you return to my side?" I stared at him in disbelief. After 2 lifetimes of wicked deeds, he somehow managed to pin all the blame squarely on me, expecting me to return to him. What a joke. You used Quinn and now you're trying to use me. Do you think everyone's a fool? I may be useless, but I'm not stupid. He chuckled softly. "You're mistaken. I truly intended to return to you after avenging you, yet you actually dared to fall for that hideous creature while I was away." His sword pointed at Eldrick, his expression carrying a barely perceptible hint of resentment. "I effortlessly exposed him. If not for Eldrick, no one would have known you served not thousands, but certainly hundreds of masters, wouldn't they? You were born to feed on others' fortunes. Once you've drained them dry, you abandon them without a second thought and move on to your next victim. Lysander, only you know how much your so-called sincerity is truly worth." Lysander continued laughing maniacally in response. "So what if you know? Even if I'm born to siphon luck, I've never deceived anyone. They all harbor their own greed, using me to get what they desire. I merely use them for cultivation. What's wrong with that? But you're different. You're the only one in all these years who's never coveted anything from me. If you agree to return to my side now, I might spare you from having your fortune drained." I was nearly moved by his mercy, until the next moment, when my spirit sword flashed from its sheath and struck him square across the face. "In your dreams," Lysander's gaze pierced through me with lethal intensity, his eyes radiating pure ice. "No matter. After I slaughter everyone you hold dear, you'll come crawling back to me." He swung his blade and lunged at me. Eldrick stood before him, his massive beastly form casting a shadow over me. "If you want to lay a finger on her, you'll have to go through me first." Lysander sneered at Eldrick, his lips curling in mockery. "You pathetic wretch. Last time, you could barely withstand 5 strikes from me. What gives you the audacity to stand in my way now?" No sooner had he spoken than his spiritual energy coalesced into a razor-sharp blade, slashing toward Eldrick. Eldrick shielded me firmly behind him as Lysander came fully prepared this day. None within or beyond the sect could halt his advance now. A blinding white light engulfed the entire sect, and after the screech of clashing blades, tens of thousands of spirit blades pierced through Eldrick's body. Standing resolute before Lysander, Eldrick slowly raised his hand and caught the remaining spirit blades barehanded. The world was bathed in crimson as Eldrick the monstrosity was cleaved into 8 pieces. With Vesta cowering at his feet in terrified supplication, none of the outcomes Lysander had anticipated came to pass. The luminous mist dissipated, transforming all those spirit blades into mountain veil vapors. Eldrick remained rooted in place, effortlessly neutralizing Lysander's spiritual energy. Standing atop Eldrick, I relentlessly swung my sword toward Lysander's face. Still stunned, he staggered backward under my relentless assault. Seizing the opening, my blade finally struck his crown point. Blood gushed instantly as he howled in pain, his human form dissolving into bestial shape, a beastly form identical in every way to Eldrick, save for a slight difference in coloration. In the beginning, twin spirit beasts were born between heaven and earth, breathing in and out the essence of creation, jointly governing the cosmic fortunes. In time, the younger brother grew weary of the slow, laborious process of drawing energy from the world, and devised a method to accelerate his cultivation by draining the fortunes of others, yet all whose fortunes he consumed were reduced to worthless wrecks, some even perished. Thus did the elder brother oppose him. After having his proposals repeatedly rebuked by his elder brother, the younger sibling grew resentful. Frustrated by his brother's incompetence, he angrily sealed him away and began training alone. The story Eldrick once casually told me still lingers in my mind. My eyes widened in shock at the sight of the two colossal, nearly identical creatures before me. Eldric's voice came from behind me. Lysander, perhaps I should call you little brother now. Brother, you're nothing but a cowardly, worthless insect. What makes you think you deserve to call me your brother? Lysander's eyes bulged with rage as he roared these words. The heavens have truly favored me, since I failed to exterminate you all in our past life. You'll all burn in hell together this time. His grip tightened around the sword as surging spiritual energy erupted from his dantian. With crimson-tinged eyes blazing, he raised his blade and shattered the sex stone steps beneath his boot. He wasn't wrong. Even with Eldric fighting alongside me, we barely withstood 5 of his strikes. Pinning Eldric beneath him, he let out a maddened laugh. I've consumed the fortunes of thousands, nourished by heaven and earth's essence. You pathetic fools stand no chance against me. Eldric and I were forced into retreat, his body accumulating more wounds with each step he took to shield me. When we were cornered with nowhere left to retreat, Lysander drove his sword mercilessly through Eldric's chest. Thunder roared across the heavens as Lysander stood triumphant atop the sea of spectators, mocking Eldric's downfall. You shall never defeat me. Not in this life nor the next. Eldric suddenly raised his head through the pain. Locking eyes with Lysander as a smirk curled his lips, I slipped soundlessly behind Lysander, slicing my palm open while his attention remained fixed on Eldric, completing the inconspicuous blood ritual circle on the ground with finality. A thunderbolt cracked across the horizon, this time striking Lysander square in the face, as successive lightning strikes rained down. Lysander stared in disbelief at the magic circle beneath his feet. You underestimate me too much. Just some petty magic formation. He raised his hand to break the spell, but his legs felt anchored as if gripped by invisible hands. He couldn't budge an inch. Countless lightning strikes seemed to pinpoint their targets, instantly converging upon Lysander with terrifying precision. Lysander raised his arms against the heavenly wrath, his eyes burning with unspeakable ferocity. This was all a trap to lure me here. Not exactly a trap, truth be told. Eldric and I stood no chance against Lysander in direct combat, but with the Blood Array's power, that certainty vanishes. Beneath the Blood Array lie the souls of all whose fortunes Lysander has consumed. With their strength combined with mine and Eldric's, we stand a chance against Lysander. Crushed by overwhelming pressure, he coughed up blood yet stubbornly rose to his feet. The Binding Array's power was fading. Eldric had nearly exhausted every last drop of his spiritual energy. 5. His form grew translucent while restraining Lysander, yet when his gaze met mine, he regained the appearance from our first meeting. Tears pooled around him as he whispered, "Don't be afraid, Master, I promise to protect you." Blood streamed endlessly from the corner of his mouth in that fleeting moment. A golden light flashed as the seal Lysander had placed on him shattered amidst the heavenly tribulation. Spiritual energy surged from his body, and with mouth agape, he began draining Lysander's very fortune. Behind Eldric stood tens of thousands of withered souls. Though desiccated, they conjured a massive protective barrier for him. How can this be? I channeled the lightning strike downward, and Lysander's fur was instantly charred black, but we had sorely underestimated Lysander's true power. With a wave of his hand, he materialized countless spirit blades that pierced through the legion of lost souls. The withered spirits shrieked as they dissolved into the void, while Lysander laughed with maniacal glee. What do I care if there are tens of thousands of vengeful spirits beneath my feet? They're nothing but worthless trash anyway. You're severely underestimating me. He lunged forward, his fingers nearly closing around my throat, just centimeters away, when suddenly some unseen force seized his legs. Quinn had awakened unnoticed. She charged into the formation, using her own body to reinforce the weakening magic array. Lysander, don't you dare run. I'll haunt you from beyond the grave. True to her word, she never released Lysander even as the lightning reduced her to ashes. Lysander had no choice but to release me in his desperate attempt to shake off Quinn. Seizing the moment before the cataclysmic thunder struck, Eldric drove his spirit blade unflinchingly between Lysander's brows. Boom! Lysander's eyes widened in disbelief as he glared at me and Eldric with bitter resentment. The moment he collapsed, the earth seemed to tremble as Quinn dragged him down into the abyss together. You were just a worthless loser before. How could you? With an impassive face, I sealed away his and Quinn's final cries. Even the worthless have their own path to power. Evil deeds will meet their own doom, then may you fight to your heart's content in the sealed realm. After the great battle, the seal on Eldric was finally broken. He was once strikingly handsome, but out of his younger brother's resentment, Lysander sealed away even his looks when casting the imprisonment spell. In this lifetime, he completely restored my spiritual roots, awakening new ambitions within me. I couldn't bear being called useless trash anymore. So I trained relentlessly day and night, yet my cultivation showed not the slightest improvement. I've been desperately longing for spiritual energy day and night, even losing 7 pounds from the anticipation, until one day during my lazy cultivation session, I drowsily saw Eldric channeling spiritual energy everywhere. What are you doing, Master? Have you forgotten I'm a fortune beast? My duty is to gather spiritual energy from all sources and channel it outward. Watching the massive flow of energy he was channeling while my own cultivation yielded nothing but an empty spiritual root, I suddenly lost my composure. Seriously, couldn't you spare just a little for me first? Story 2. After raising my adopted son, he actually broke my leg and threw me into a desolate house in the extreme cold of the apocalypse. I questioned him why. He laughed and threw a family photo in my face. If it weren't for you, my mom wouldn't have to be the woman behind my dad all her life and suffer grievances for a lifetime. Oh my. It turned out that the woman who had always been said to be my husband's mistress really had a relationship with them, the father and son. In this new life, I'm going all out. The good wife persona can go to hell, and that ungrateful family will all die by my hand. 1. My adopted son, Alex, is in the 1st grade now, and it's the time to cultivate his study habits. I'm also his homeroom teacher, so I naturally pay extra attention to him. However, my mother-in-law and husband, relying on the more than 200 square meter demolition house we have, look down on others all day long. They fantasize that after getting millions, they won't have to worry about food and drinks for the rest of their lives. They don't take their son's study seriously either. Our Alex will soon be a rich 2nd generation. By then, we can spend some money and send him abroad. It's more prestigious than going to a domestic university. What your grandma said is right. We won't do this mental arithmetic anymore. Whether your mom gets angry or not, we'll just ignore her. My husband and mother-in-law chimed in. Alex immediately hid behind them and stuck out his tongue at me, giggling. La la la. I'm making mom angry. The 7-year-old Alex was still making faces at me. I went up and slapped the back of his head. I also grabbed a strand of his hair. The room was filled with the child's loud crying and my mother-in-law's furious scolding. I turned a deaf ear to them, holding the hair of Andrew that I had kept before. I also took the hair of the father and son and went to the testing agency. It would take a few days to do the paternity test. During this time, I moved back to my parents' home. The 3 of them, the grandmother, the father, and the son, thought that I would take the initiative to go home after being in a fit of pique for a few days. They had no idea that at this moment, my disgust for them had reached its peak. Who would have thought that I was lucky enough to be reborn? 2. In my previous life, Andrew and his mother always opposed me. They thought that I was too eager in educating Alex and had a utilitarian mentality of comparing him with other children. Other children don't have the good fortune that our Alex has. If they don't work hard, they'll end up sweeping the streets. After we get the demolition money, even if Alex does nothing and just waits for the bank interest, it will be higher than other people's salaries. My mother-in-law often said these words, as if she thought that the bank would give her whatever interest she wanted. Influenced by his mother, Andrew was also not active at work. He spent all day asking about the demolition. He also swiped his credit card in advance to buy a car and an expensive phone. Our usual expenses increased geometrically. He often treated his colleagues and friends to meals. They either went to Hey De Leo or Jean Chin Bao, a high-end restaurant. He squandered all of his salary every month. For the past half-year, I had been supporting all the expenses at home. As a result, more than half of the demolition money was used to pay off the debts, influenced by my mother-in-law and husband. My adopted son, Alex, also hated me deeply. After graduating from university and working at the Meteorological Bureau, Alex was lucky enough to learn in advance about the arrival of the extreme cold apocalypse. He took all the remaining demolition money at home to buy a villa, saying that he wanted to build an apocalypse fortress. Alex told me that the apocalypse would come on December 31st, 2024, and asked me to move to Haishar in advance after the summer vacation. I believed him, in fact. The extreme cold weather arrived in February, on the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month. On the first day of the sudden snowstorm, I was worried whether my mother-in-law and husband, who had gone to give Alex New Year's goods, could arrive safely. I didn't know that they had left me alone in the county town on the pretext of giving New Year's goods. The reason why they chose to build the Apocalypse Fortress in the urban area 300 kilometers away from the county town was to get rid of me. Not only that, but they also disposed of all the remaining food at home and took away the bank cards and cash. On the 3rd day of the snowstorm, the water, electricity, and heating were all cut off. I was alone, miserable, and helpless. I could only hide in the vegetable cellar, which had the highest temperature, with my power bank and phone. When the New Year's bell rang, Alex video called me. I thought that he had a change of heart and was going to save me, but he said, "Mom, you don't really think that I would be grateful to you, do you? You were never really good to me. You just wanted to satisfy your vanity among your colleagues with my good grades." In the video, I also saw a woman who looked 7 or 8 points similar to him. She leaned in my husband Andrew's arms behind Alex and smiled happily. "How is this possible? You were picked up by your dad from the orphanage." Hearing my words, Alex laughed out loud. "You're so stupid. Why would my dad pick up someone else's child to raise? I'm his biological son. My mind was in chaos. Before I died, I still remembered the sneer of this ungrateful person. You fool. In your next life, be someone else's mom. 3. Since I was reborn, I would never follow the same path as in my previous life. A few days later, I got the result and took the initiative to go home. I went back and directly asked Andrew for a divorce. Divorce? Emma, are you crazy? Andrew looked shocked and sneered. You're a woman. How dare you talk about divorce? Have you ever thought about how you would live without me? I slapped the paternity test result on Andrew's face and retorted without showing any weakness. There are plenty of two-legged men in the world. You're a piece of trash who had an affair. I'm clean and honest. I'll live better without you. Andrew stared at me with his bull-like eyes. When he saw the content of the paternity test, his expression changed instantly. He questioned me where I got the paternity test and said that I even resorted to faking it in order to get a share of his property in the divorce. I retorted, then tell me which orphanage you picked up Alex from. Do you still have the adoption papers? Andrew fell silent. However, my mother-in-law, who came over after hearing our argument, vowed to stand by her son. She even took out Alex's adoption certificate from the locked drawer. I took it and glanced at it. After confirming that it was the one Andrew had given me before, I quickly took a photo and sent it to my friend. Then I folded the original and stuffed it into my bag. You had an affair during our marriage and forged the adoption certificate to deceive your wife and make her raise your illegitimate son. Andrew, if I take you to court, how do you think the judge will sentence you? For Andrew tried to snatch the certificate from me. But I wasn't afraid at all. If you lay a hand on me, I can also accuse you of domestic violence. Andrew broke into a cold sweat. He probably thought that I would never find out about Alex's true identity. He was caught off guard for a moment, but he quickly calmed down. Emma, after all these years of our marriage, don't you trust my character? It's not what you think. He explained that he was drunk and didn't know how he ended up sleeping with another woman. I'm also a victim. If I didn't cherish our relationship and was afraid that you would blame me if you knew about it, why would I go to the trouble of hiding it from you? Andrew and I both worked at the county primary school. The difference was that he was the grade director and I was the homeroom teacher. He was 4 years older than me, joined the school earlier, had rich work experience, and had won the Excellent Cadre Award. I was still on an external employment contract and had to continue taking exams to apply for a permanent position. Andrew showed the patience he usually used when giving ideological guidance to the teachers and tried to persuade me. He also tried to deceive me with sweet words, but I, who had died once, had a heart harder than iron. This is the divorce agreement. If you agree, sign it. If not, we'll see each other in court. I believe that Andrew wouldn't hesitate to divorce me if it was just a simple divorce, but I insisted that Andrew compensate me with a house. Because of this house, Andrew showed his true colors and had a falling out with me. He cursed me, saying that I was daydreaming and as delusional as a toad wanting to eat a swan. This house is my premarital property. Why should you get a share? Emma, if you're really feeling unbalanced, I can give you all the savings we've accumulated over the years. There's a total of 100,000 yuan on this card. Andrew threw the card at my feet as if he was giving alms to a beggar. I was so angry that I laughed. Since you brought this illegitimate son, Alex, home, it's been 6 years. I've been in charge of his daily life and early education. For 6 years, even if you hired a nanny, it would cost more than 100,000 yuan. Why do you think I would accept your disrespectful charity? Moreover, this 100,000 yuan also contains my hard-earned money. Don't forget that this card was opened in my name. I bent down and picked up the card. This is what I deserve. It's not up to you to give it to me. You're so shameless. Andrew's fingers trembled with anger. He lost his temper and started acting recklessly. He threatened that he would suggest to the school to cancel my application for a permanent teaching position. Don't forget how you got this job at the school. There are plenty of graduating normal students who can replace you at any time. I didn't care at all. Fine. You want to use your personal connections to get back at me, right? Then I'll report you to the Education Bureau for having an affair during our marriage. You're a teacher with corrupt moral character. Let's see if the principal will fire you to protect his own position. Andrew was completely enraged by me and shouted, Emma, you really want to fight me to the death, don't you? I took a step forward and looked him in the eye, saying word by word, you're wrong. I want this stinky fish of yours to never have a chance to turn things around. Andrew, you've been playing me for 6 years. Even a clay figurine has some temper. Why should I let you have an easy time? Andrew had never seen me so fierce. The veins on his face bulged, and his eyes were filled with anger and fear when he looked at me. In a panic, he compromised and signed the divorce agreement. He also warned me, trying to maintain his dignity, that I'd better resign voluntarily, otherwise I would suffer at his hands. I put away the divorce agreement and turned around gracefully. I was afraid that if I said one more word to him, I wouldn't be able to control my urge to kill and set things on fire. Andrew thought that I was just angry about him having a mistress and wanted justice. He had no idea that this was just the first step of my revenge. I died so miserably in my previous life. None of the three of them, including that mistress I had never met, were innocent. 5. On the day I resigned from the school, Andrew pretended to be kind and came to help me move the boxes. Emma, after all, we were husband and wife. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, remember to come to me. Don't worry, I'm not the kind of petty person who can't stand to see my ex-wife doing well. I glanced at my colleagues who were watching the scene. I unceremoniously exposed his affair during our marriage and revealed his hypocritical face. Later, a close colleague told me that Andrew invited people to dinner and got drunk. He boasted that he would prevent me from getting a job in any school in the county. He really thought that I resigned from the school because I was worried that he would make things difficult for me. If it weren't for what happened in my previous life, I might have thought, just like him, that getting a position in a primary school was the best way out for me, but now, with the memories of my previous life, I seem to have grasped the password to survival. This year, the Xingdongfeng Education Group was on the rise. I applied for a job there and successfully passed the interview with my years of teaching experience. In the following time, without the burden of the child, I was able to handle my work with ease. In just 3 years, my annual salary had exceeded 1 million yuan. The training courses in the institution were concentrated on weekends and after school. When I was busy, I rarely paid attention to other things, but I also knew that Andrew had brought Alex's biological mother home less than 2 months after our divorce. Her name was Amelia, and she was the assistant manager of a 3-star hotel. I heard that Andrew's mother opposed it, thinking that having a woman from the hotel in the house was a disgrace to the family, but no one listened to the old woman. Andrew even held a grand banquet. The scene on the wedding day was more lively than ours had been. More than half of the colleagues from the school went. Amelia also invited many hotel executives and big bosses to attend. It should have been a happy occasion, but halfway through, a boss got drunk. He grabbed Amelia's hand and insisted on chatting with her. He even touched her buttocks indecently. I've always thought that Amelia is not a good person. We don't discriminate against her profession. But just think about it, she had a child for the director when she wasn't married. Can her intentions be pure? Aurora, a former colleague from the finance department, chatted with me on the phone for a long time. She said that she was sitting at the table closest to the boss. Amelia's look of half-heartedly refusing and half-welcoming made her want to vomit. It's a pity that you didn't go that day, Emma, you missed a good show. I replied to her, after the divorce. We're two different families, we have nothing to do with each other from now on. Later, I didn't take the initiative to contact my former colleagues, and I didn't hear any news about Andrew. When I suddenly saw Andrew's figure in the office building, I was stunned for a moment, thinking that I had seen wrongly. 6. Andrew had gained weight, he had a round belly and looked greasy. Amelia was just as Aurora had described. She was dressed fashionably and had heavy makeup on her face. Her hair was permed. When she spoke, she habitually twisted her waist. Mom, it's Mom. When I was about to step into the elevator, Alex suddenly shouted at me. Then he shook off Amelia's hand holding him and ran towards me. Mom, it's me, Alex. I looked at Alex, who had grown half a head taller. My heart was filled with complex emotions, and I felt that all my efforts in raising him were in vain. I had raised him for 2 lifetimes, giving him all my heart. But he was more eager for my death than anyone else. Mom, Alex was still calling me persistently, but I remained indifferent. Andrew and Amelia also looked at me. Andrew had a pleasant expression at first, but he frowned when he saw me. He looked me up and down. When he saw the Xingdongfeng work badge pinned to my chest, his face turned even uglier. Amelia rushed over as if facing a formidable enemy and pulled Alex behind her. Alex, how can you call someone else Mom? What's your relationship with her? She was so strong that Alex stumbled and almost fell to the ground. He poked his head out from behind her and looked at me pitifully, with tears welling up in his eyes. Andrew had always doted on the child. Seeing this, he rebuked Amelia with some dissatisfaction. What are you getting angry with the child for? Unexpectedly, Amelia exploded on the spot and reached out to grab Andrew's collar regardless of the occasion. Oh, so you're already abhor me, Andrew. Be honest, do you think of her every day just like your son? If you're already so reluctant, why did you divorce her in the first place? You should have stayed with her for the rest of your life. Your mom has always praised Emma for her good parenting. Presumably, if she were still your wife, you wouldn't have to worry about your son's grades. It was really unexpected that Andrew's mother would praise me. I laughed bitterly and shook my head. I was too lazy to watch the farce of their family of 3, but Amelia was acting like she had taken the wrong medicine and insisted on blocking my way. She insisted that I had made an appointment with Andrew to meet here and had deliberately embarrassed her. The son I gave birth to rushed up and called you Mom. What on earth is your intention, Emma? You have to explain it clearly. Amelia had a loud voice, and many parents who came to consult about the courses couldn't help but gather around. Considering the influence on the company, I suggested that their family of 3 go to the conference room to talk. Amelia sneered and crossed her arms in front of her chest, looking completely unyielding. What? Are you afraid of being embarrassed? If you're afraid of being embarrassed, don't do embarrassing things. Alas, everyone, look, it's this woman. She's been haunting us even 3 years after divorcing my husband. Just now, my son called her mom. And my mother-in-law has always praised her at home. Emma, if you really can't bear to part with this family, you can tell me. I can be magnanimous and make way for you. Before Amelia could finish her sentence, I poured all the hot coffee in my hand onto her face. It wasn't enough to cause serious burns, but it was enough to make her uncomfortable. Amelia was shocked at first and tried to pounce on me, but 2 colleagues stepped forward and stopped her. I looked around at the chattering crowd and remained calm. I took a step towards Amelia and looked at her with cold eyes. After I divorced Andrew, I haven't met him at all, and there has been no communication in any form. What you just said has slandered me, and I reserve the right to sue you for insulting my personality. Also, you said that your biological son called me mom. Let me ask you, in which year was Alex born? I remember that he was less than 1 year old when Andrew brought him home as an adopted child. I paused and glanced at Andrew's red face. At that time, Andrew and I had been married for 3 years. Your biological son is also Andrew's biological son. You 2 deceived me and made me raise your son for 6 years. I haven't settled the score with you yet. What right do you have to shout at me? 7. The content of my words was clear enough, and the people present cast contemptuous glances at Andrew and Amelia. I thought it was a scene of catching the mistress. It turns out that the mistress has come to show off. The world is in a bad state these days. Mistresses even feel proud of themselves, more so than the legitimate wife. To be honest, the original wife is really pitiful. She was deceived into raising the mistress's child for 6 years. If it were me, I would be so angry that I would want to chop up this couple. Who said they want to chop me up? Come on, give it a try. Amelia was really quick to take the bait. She turned around and shouted, looking for the person who had scolded her. Andrew cared about his face the most. At this moment, he was so angry that his face turned red and his neck thickened. He grabbed Amelia's wrist and dragged her out of the hall. Alex stumbled and followed them out the door, looking back at me every few steps. I really don't understand. When I was taking care of him before, he always scolded me behind my back and took the opportunity to complain to his grandmother and father that I was not good to him. Why does he seem to be longing for me now? I'm too lazy to think too much. Anyway, I will never recognize him as my son again. Unexpectedly, a few days later, Andrew and Amelia came again, and they had the nerve to ask me to tutor Alex personally. Sorry, you 2. Principal Song is mainly responsible for administrative work now. We have professional teachers for teaching. They are all carefully selected young teachers with rich experience and great patience with students. As soon as the teacher who received them said this, Andrew was immediately unhappy. We're paying. Why can't you meet our request? Amelia even threatened to find the media to expose the company, saying that we were treating parents differently and discriminating against her son. 8. The young teacher had no choice but to come to me. I called them to the conference room. I could tell at a glance that Andrew and Amelia didn't really come to sign Alex up for classes. I'm afraid they felt embarrassed the other day and found an excuse to get back at me. It's not impossible for me to teach Alex's courses personally. I unexpectedly agreed to their request and attached a detailed course plan. Andrew was obviously surprised and looked at the plan suspiciously. He immediately became angry and slapped the table, shouting loudly, Emma, you're taking me for a fool. 500 yuan per class. You really have the nerve to ask for that much. What? 500 yuan? Amelia also shouted, Emma, are you worth that much? I reminded them to pay attention to their words and behavior. Since your parents who came to consult about signing your child up for classes, please respect yourselves. Otherwise, I will ask the security guards to throw you out, or I can also call the police and charge you with picking a quarrel and provoking trouble. Andrew and Amelia glanced at the 2 assistants sitting next to me and fell silent. They deliberately got very close to each other, as if they were acting. Andrew even put his arm around Amelia's shoulder at her signal. After a moment of silence, he raised his eyebrows at me. If you can ensure that Alex's grades are among the top in the class next semester, we can pay, but if you can't guarantee it, I can't. My straightforward answer left Andrew speechless. Just as he was about to get angry, Amelia pressed his hand. I heard that you're the principal here. You're charging us such a high price. If you can't even make this guarantee, why should we trust you to take care of our child? I nodded in agreement. Of course, you have other options. Amelia, are you deliberately trying to drive us away? Don't rely on the company's reputation to bully customers. Be careful, or we'll report you to the Education Bureau. I patiently motioned for them to finish reading the plan. This plan was carefully formulated by our senior teachers according to Alex's grades. Since Alex's grades in all subjects are at the bottom of the class, it's still a bit difficult for him to catch up. At least, it's impossible to make him among the top students next semester. Under their angry gazes, I continued. But we're confident that we can make him among the top 20 students in the class when he enters junior high school. If you parents are willing to entrust your child to our institution, we will go all out and keep our promise." Andrew repeatedly flipped through the plan, frowning more and more tightly. "According to your plan, it will cost at least 130,000 yuan a year. The cost is too high." I nodded again. "High investment, high return." Director Andrew is also a senior teacher and should understand this better than me. At my words, Andrew straightened his chest and put on the airs he had at school again. "Although what you said is true, I still think the class fee you're asking for is far beyond the market value." At this point, I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I directly motioned for the assistant beside me to hand him another document. "Please take a look. You two parents. This is Principal Song's income statement for the class fees over the past year. 500 yuan per class is the lowest price she can offer." This time, Amelia also leaned forward eagerly. The expressions on their faces changed. They both looked disbelieving. "Your annual income is that high? You're not faking it, are you?" Amelia asked me. I smiled and didn't answer. The assistant patiently explained the internal culture of our group and that we would never fake anything. Andrew and Amelia sat in the conference room for 3 hours, but they still couldn't decide whether to pay. Of course, I already knew that they wouldn't pay, because I had asked my acquaintance and found out that Andrew and Amelia had no savings at all. Not only that, but they also owed a large amount of debt. Some of it was from Andrew maxing out his credit card, and some was from Amelia's gambling. I was shocked when I heard this. Amelia actually had such a bad habit. No wonder Andrew's mother didn't like her. As for Alex's studies, the two of them were even more unreliable. If Andrew's mother hadn't urged them to find a tutoring class for Alex to improve his grades, they probably wouldn't have come. 9. It was within my expectation that Andrew and Amelia wouldn't pay to sign Alex up for the class. But I didn't expect them to be so irrational that they would really find the media to expose me. A recording of our conversation in the conference room was played, with the beginning and end cut off, leading everyone to misunderstand that as the group leader, I was asking for an exorbitant price. The day after it was broadcast on the local TV station, our group received many calls from parents who wanted to withdraw their children from the classes. The reporters from the TV station also surrounded the gate of the group early in the morning, shouting that they wanted to interview me. At the same time, I received a call from Andrew. "If you don't want to lose your current job, return the house that was transferred to your name, otherwise, I'll ruin your reputation." I pressed the recording button and asked him with great interest, "Do you have the ability to do that?" Andrew seemed to be motivated by me and said with certainty, "Don't forget that we lived together for almost 10 years. I know you like the sound of my own voice. It's easier for me to deal with you than to crush an ant." I pressed the mute button and told my assistant that we could agree to the TV station's interview request. During the prime time in the evening, almost all the people in the county were sitting in front of the TV, waiting to see the drama. When the host asked me if I had any explanation for the recording from the previous day, I took out a lawyer's letter. "I'm going to sue Andrew and Amelia for damaging my reputation and demand compensation from them." I played the edited videos of Andrew and Amelia making a scene in the hall when they first came to the company and the video of me receiving them in the conference room. Due to the limited interview time, only part of the video can be shown. If you're interested in this matter, you're welcome to Xingdongfeng to watch the complete video. I smiled generously and naturally at the camera. Our company will play the complete video in a loop on both sides of the hall to ensure that the image of our employees is not damaged. After the interview, almost everyone knew that I had been deceived by Andrew and had raised his illegitimate son for 6 years. People were passionately angry about the fact that the couple had fabricated facts to slander me in revenge. Too many enthusiastic citizens came to the company hall to watch the complete video. I dispatched employees from the branch company to support the reception work and took the opportunity to enroll students, completing the performance for the coming year, because at that time, surveillance cameras hadn't been widely installed across the country. At least, there were no surveillance cameras in every office of the primary school where Andrew worked. Therefore, Andrew never expected that there would be surveillance cameras in the company hall and the conference room, which recorded his vicious face. Insiders revealed that he had been talked to by the school leaders later, and the demotion was the greatest leniency for him, and Amelia became the target of public condemnation. She had to sneak out like a rat. Some people even threw stinky eggs and rotten vegetable leaves at their door. When Andrew came to the company again, furious, and wanted to talk to me about withdrawing the lawsuit, I refused to see him. The next day, his mother came with Alex. The old woman led her grandson and waited outside the company, only to be told that I had already resigned. The newly appointed principal clearly stated that if they dared to cause trouble in the company and affect the company's reputation, they would be arrested by the police. At the mention of the police, Alex was so scared that he shrank back and shouted for his grandmother to take him home. When the young teacher vividly told me all this, I had already bought a single-family villa in the provincial capital and was preparing to start the renovation and stockpile supplies. 10. Although according to the time in my previous life, the extreme cold apocalypse was still a few years away, after being reborn, I found that the global weather was changing abnormally. Various meteorological disasters had occurred in some areas of many countries. The extreme cold weather was likely to arrive earlier, and I had to implement my plan ahead of time. Since it was a single-family villa, the decoration workers would start work according to my instructions. To avoid their suspicion, I hired 3 decoration companies. One was responsible for the doors, windows, and basement. One was responsible for the solar panels and the multifunctional water purifier, and the other was responsible for the soft decoration. The housing prices had risen sharply in recent years, and my savings were not much left after buying the house, fortunately. The demolition policy was quickly implemented, and I received more than 5 million yuan in demolition compensation. I took 500,000 yuan to the bank to buy national bonds and gold bars. With modern technology, as long as ordinary people could survive the extreme cold weather, social order would surely be restored. I invested all the remaining money in the renovation and stockpiling of supplies. It took a full 2 years, and my very own doomsday fortress was finally completed. Inside, there were ample supplies of food, water, and medicine, as well as some easy-to-operate medical equipment. At least, it could ensure that I could live there safely for 50 years. I gave each member of the renovation team a generous red envelope and reminded them to go home and spend more time with their families when they had the chance. The meteorological station soon released the latest scope of the blizzard. Both of my parents were medical workers, and they had left me as early as 2003. I moved into the villa with their urns, afraid of being lonely. I picked up 2 cats and a stray dog from the roadside to keep me company. The moment the anti-theft doors and windows were locked, my heart felt incomparably peaceful. In the days before the blizzard hit, people were still sighing that this once-in-a-century snow was an auspicious omen. But soon, with the news that power supplies were strained across the country, travel was difficult in some areas due to snow accumulation, and there was an urgent shortage of daily necessities. People began to feel anxious and restless. However, the country also quickly introduced corresponding policies to ensure the minimum living standards of the people. For 2 consecutive months, the most broadcast news on TV and the internet was about incidents where houses were collapsed by snow in certain places, and rescue efforts were ongoing intensively. Or it was about how, due to consecutive days of power outages, heating could no longer be guaranteed in many places, and there were frequent accidents caused by residents using charcoal fires for heating. In the face of disasters, people are always small and vulnerable. I turned off the TV and the internet, and holding a little calico cat in my arms, I walked to the window. The snow outside was about to cover the windows on the first floor. The howling north wind blew the broken branches of trees and fallen store signs all over the sky. There had been no pedestrians or vehicles on the street for a month. Occasionally, fire engines and police cars could be seen, but they all needed snowplows to clear the way in front. When the phone rang, I was a little surprised to see a strange number on the screen. Although communication signals were still temporarily maintained, who would call me at this time? In this situation, there aren't many households whose phones can still be charged. I answered the call and pressed the speakerphone button. As soon as I said hello, Andrew's angry roar came from the other end. "Emma, you vicious woman, do you want to kill our whole family?" 11. Andrew ranted non-stop, and the cat in my arms arched its back and flattened its ears in fright. "Emma, if you have the guts, hide from me for the rest of your life. You're a jinx. I've never had any luck since I married you. Even after we got divorced, you still want to screw me over, Emma. You've made our whole family like this. You won't die a good death." The last sentence was shouted by Amelia. I pieced together the general information from their words. It turned out that after the incident 2 years ago, Amelia was fired by the hotel. When she looked for a new job, she was often recognized. No hotel was willing to hire a woman who had destroyed someone else's family as a manager. Even if she was willing to lower her standards and work as a waitress, no one dared to employ her, for fear of affecting the business. In the end, Amelia could only sell clothes in a shopping mall or work as a server in some small hot pot restaurants. Once, after being recognized by a customer, she got into an argument. Amelia actually overturned the hot pot and scalded the customer. Just then, the demolition compensation money arrived, and the other party sued Amelia in court. The court directly froze her and Andrew's accounts. They had to pay hundreds of thousands of yuan for the customer's surgery and skin grafting. "Emma, all of this is because of you. You have to pay me back this money." Amelia was still screaming hysterically on the other end. I looked at the call duration on my phone, really worried that their phones would run out of battery. "I don't have any money. If you have the guts, come and get me." My words silenced them completely, before they could say anything else. I hung up the phone and blocked the number. I still haven't avenged the hatred of how they killed me in my previous life, yet they dare to shift the blame. A week later, the blizzard suddenly stopped. Under the government's organization, snowplows began to appear on the streets and alleys one after another, and people started to go out to seek help. On the internet, some people posted that the blizzard-ridden doomsday had passed, and the survivors would welcome a brand new spring. But I knew that the real extreme cold was approaching quietly. The snow stopping at this time was like the calm before a tsunami. The real disaster was about to begin. I quickly posted an article on my social media account, reminding the public to take advantage of this time to stockpile food and water and then find a place to shelter from the wind and keep warm. The government also announced several shelters at the same time, almost in every region. It seemed that this was a prepared battle for survival between humanity and nature. Less than an hour after the article was published, many people left comments. Amaya, my power was out at home before, and I couldn't get in touch with you. Now that the power has been temporarily restored, I have to thank you first for your previous reminder. Amaya, I listened to you and stocked a lot of food at home, but the current heating can't keep up. I'm really afraid that my family won't be able to survive the upcoming extreme cold. Teacher Amaya, I've always thought your articles were well written. I didn't expect you to be a prophet. Amaya, my parents took your advice early on. Our basement is now stocked with a lot of supplies, enough for our family to last a year or two. Ever since I worked at Xingdongfeng, I had opened a social media account online, and the most played videos were about life skills for surviving in the doomsday. Over time, the number of people following me increased. After I resigned, I began to gradually convey information about the upcoming extreme cold to everyone. Of course, some people believed it, while others didn't, but all of this didn't matter to me. I just wanted to save as many lives as I could. When posting these messages, I never revealed my personal information, and no one knew that I was the one who posted them. 12. I didn't have time to reply to everyone's messages one by one. I just took the time to upload some more measures on how to use existing resources to keep warm. Soon, the articles and videos I published were actually used by the government and broadcast on TV and official websites. This also included videos from many other bloggers, which together formed a collection of survival skills in the current harsh environment. The doomsday was cruel, but people's hearts were warm. The temperature continued to drop sharply, and the meteorological station issued low temperature warnings for several consecutive days. After half a month of mobilization by the government, the shelters everywhere were almost full. If Andrew and Amelia had listened to the advice and gone to the shelters at this time, perhaps their family could have survived. But they persistently found the address where I lived. It was hard to imagine how they managed to travel all the way here. Moreover, I had never told my address to any friend. I didn't know what method they used to find it. When I heard the alarm from the gate, I saw the 4 of them on the monitor. They were all wrapped up like zombies, carrying bags and backpacks. Emma, open the door for me. Andrew slapped the anti-theft door hard and shouted at the top of his lungs. I made myself a cup of hot coffee, turned on all the surveillance cameras around the villa, and calmly watched the farce outside the door. Just at midnight today, the meteorological station urgently reported that the second wave of heavy snow would arrive in various parts of the world one after another. At this moment, snowflakes were falling in large flakes. The 4 of them stood at the gate for less than 10 minutes and were already covered in snow. Seeing that no one paid attention to them, Andrew and Amelia walked around the villa, muttering whether they had come to the wrong place. I saw Andrew take out a piece of paper from his pocket and compare it with the house number of my place repeatedly. That's right, this is the place. This bitch, she must be deliberately not opening the door for us. She wants to freeze us to death. Call the police and say that she deliberately tricked us into coming to her for shelter, leaving us homeless now. Amelia whispered in Andrew's ear. Don't you have photos of Alex when he was a child with her? Say that she's Alex's biological mother. In this situation, the police won't have time to verify. We'll accuse her of abandoning a minor child and force the police to make her open the door. Andrew thought for a moment, and a vicious light flashed in his eyes. Right, as soon as she opens the door, we'll rush in. I heard that Emma has stocked a lot of food in the villa, enough for us to eat for more than 10 years. She knew this was going to happen but didn't say anything. She's so heartless that she deserves to die. Although they spoke in a low voice, my surveillance equipment was top-notch. I could see their every move clearly, and every word they said reached my ears. I shook my head, finding it ridiculous. You know, at this time, the People's Police were the busiest. They had to maintain order in the shelters, and there were countless cases of looting in various places. They couldn't even handle all the important matters, so who had the time to deal with them? Just as I was laughing at how self-important they were, Andrew's angry curse suddenly came from the monitor. It turned out that their phones were too frozen to turn on. Now I didn't have to worry anymore. Let them freeze outside. In this life, they should taste what it's like to freeze to death. 13. The snow was falling heavier and heavier. I took a hot bath, then snuggled up on the sofa bed watching Empresses in the Palace and had a comfortable sleep when I opened my eyes again. It was already the next day. I had thought that Andrew's family would be almost dead from the cold. Unexpectedly, not only were they alive, but they had also managed to get into my neighbor's house. My neighbors were a middle-aged couple, because the husband had been injured in his early years and had trouble walking. They usually had the habit of stockpiling food. When I was renovating my house, they were also doing the same, and we borrowed a lot of ideas from each other. For example, we both installed solar panels and wind turbines. A month before the blizzard, I persuaded them to stockpile more supplies on the pretext that it was inconvenient to go out due to the bad weather. After the blizzard, we had been keeping in touch, and greeting each other every day had almost become a part of our daily lives. At this moment, the couple was excitedly video calling me. "Fong, your son is fine. Your ex-husband's family is also very responsible. They've gone to a lot of trouble to bring him to you safely in this weather." As she spoke, the wife, Abigail, brought Alex in front of the camera for me to see. Alex was in the 3rd grade of junior high school this year. He had grown into a young man and had changed a lot in appearance. His voice was so rough and hoarse, like the sound of an old phonograph record after wear and tear, that it startled me when he opened his mouth. "Mom, don't you want Alex anymore? Alex misses you so much." Alex was extremely excited to see me, and the way he called me Mom was full of sincerity. In front of Abigail and her husband, Arthur, I could only force a smile and comfort Alex first. I promised that I would pick him up and let him live in the villa as soon as possible, and told him not to be too naughty at the neighbor's house. If I didn't say this, I was worried that their family would do something bad to Abigail and her husband. The weather is too cold, and the anti-theft door of my house is frozen. I'm already trying to open it. As soon as the door is open, I'll pick you all up. After hearing my words, Alex turned around and showed off to Andrew. "I knew Mom loves me the most. Dad, we'll be able to live at Mom's house soon." As soon as he ran away, Amelia's face appeared on the screen. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes were full of triumph. She took the phone from Abigail on the pretext of wanting to catch up with me. "Emma, it doesn't really matter whether we go to your place or not. I think the Moes don't lack food or electricity here. We can stay here for a while longer. I'm just the kind of person who can't keep my mouth shut. I might reveal all your secrets." I glared at Amelia angrily. "Will your family ever stop? If you hadn't gone too far, I wouldn't have left the county after the snow stops. I still need to rely on the Abigails for my future work. You didn't know, did you? They are senior executives of a top domestic education and training group. For a child like Alex who has difficulty studying, if he is handed over to them, even if he can't get into Tsinghua University or Peking University, his grades won't be too bad." I wasn't lying. The Abigails were indeed very outstanding. But I also said this on purpose to make Amelia think that I cared a lot about my impression in front of the Abigails, for the sake of my future work. I would also find a way to pick them up and let them stay at my place. Before Amelia could say anything, I hung up. Although the air conditioner had been on in the room, I still broke out in a cold sweat on my back. This damned family must have used the photos of me and Alex when he was a child to deceive Abigail into opening the door for them. In my previous life, I gave my all to Andrew and his son, but they still had the heart to plot and freeze me to death at home, in the face of survival. They might not hesitate to do something cruel to strangers. The Abigails were very nice people. Just thinking that they might be implicated because of me made my heart ache. I had to find a way to notify the Abigails and tell them to be on guard against Andrew's family. Suddenly, I remembered that Abigail had mentioned that her husband had once worked in France. Fortunately, when I stocked books, I was afraid of getting bored. So I actually stocked some French novels translated into Chinese. I quickly took them off the bookshelf, pieced together a sentence, and typed it into my phone in advance. Sure enough, when I video called Abigail again, Amelia was standing behind her. 14. I ignored her and just showed the message to Abigail. "This is the prompt message displayed on my anti-theft door. I don't understand what it means. Can you ask your husband if he can help me fix the lock? I'm really anxious to pick up my child and bring him home." Abigail frowned as soon as she saw the content, but she quickly smiled at me. "I don't understand it either, but it shouldn't be a big problem. The after-sales service for this brand of anti-theft doors is very good. It's just that it's very difficult to get someone to come and repair it under the current circumstances." I also apologized with a worried look. "I hope this hint is helpful, otherwise I'll have to trouble you to take care of my son for a few more days." Abigail nodded and went to call her husband. Amelia stayed in front of the camera alone and asked me, "Emma, what are you up to? What's this string of things?" I gave her a dirty look and said, if I could understand it, why would I ask others? Then I asked her if she had talked nonsense to Abigail, deliberately stalling her so that she couldn't follow Abigail. But just as I said a few words to her, another number initiated a video call to me on my phone. The last 4 digits of the number were exactly the same as Abigail's. I guessed it was her husband's phone. I used the excuse of going to the bathroom to end the call with Amelia. After reconnecting with Abigail, I immediately asked her where she and her husband were and if they were safe. There is an anti-theft door installed between the first and second floors. Just now, that family was having a meal downstairs, and we took the opportunity to go up to the second floor and lock the door. I asked again, what about the key? Is there a spare key downstairs? Abigail shook her head and said, I brought the spare key up when I came upstairs. Hearing what she said, I let out a long sigh of relief. I knew that with Abigail's intelligence, when she saw that I said there was danger, she would definitely take measures. I apologized to them on the video and then simply and directly told them what Andrew's family had done. They might do something like killing and robbing to survive, so you must not listen to anything they say, and under no circumstances should you open the door for them. Abigail and her husband looked solemn after hearing this. Just then, Andrew's voice came from outside the door. Emo, why did you lock the door? My luggage is still in the guest room. You have to open the door and let me get my things. Aunt Mo, my homework books are in the suitcase. I need to do my homework. Miss Mo, my antihypertensive medicine is also in the guest room. I really need to take my medicine. I can't do without it. Andrew's family tried every means to coax Abigail into opening the door for them. Fortunately, Abigail and her husband were rational and refused to open the door no matter what they said. As for the antihypertensive medicine and the homework books, they directly threw Andrew's family's suitcases out of the second floor window onto the snow in the yard. If they wanted them, they could go and pick them up themselves. 15. Soon, Amelia used Abigail's phone to call me on video and question me about what I had said to Abigail. I didn't want to leave danger for Abigail and her husband, so I persuaded them to come to my house. I even opened my anti-theft door to let them see it on the video. The anti-theft door only led to the yard, and there were still 2 more doors to get into the room. I wasn't worried that they would hurt me, but Andrew noticed the food and water stockpiled in the kitchen. He thought that with these supplies, his family could safely get through the extreme cold, and they didn't need to come to my house at all. Just you wait, Emma, sooner or later, the sky will clear. If you have the guts, don't leave that door for the rest of your life. Then we'll see how I deal with you. After Andrew finished speaking, he hung up the video. I was so angry that I almost threw my phone, but soon, I learned from Abigail that a large amount of food and water in their house was actually on the second floor, and just like my house, the power supply on the first and second floors of their house was connected in parallel. In a critical moment, they could cut off the power supply to the first floor to reduce the load on the generator. Abigail also comforted me. Fong, don't worry. As long as we don't open the door, they can't get to the second floor. After hearing this, I immediately proposed, cut off the power supply to the first floor and force them to leave your house. Emo, they are devils, and you must do as I say to drive them away. Abigail hesitated and said, if we cut off the power now, they will freeze to death. She was too kind. I didn't persuade her anymore. After all, I couldn't force her to kill people, but I could do it myself. My original plan was to control the drone to damage the power supply lines on the first floor of Abigail's house, but before I could do it, thunder came from the sky. It was unusual to have thunder in a snowy day, and the thunder just hit the roof of Abigail's house. The external generator was struck and started to spark. After the thunder stopped, I quickly had a video call with Abigail and was told that the wind turbine was severely damaged, and her house was completely without power. The blizzard made the sky gloomy all the time, and the solar panels had long been useless. Looking at the despair on the faces of Abigail and her husband, my heart ached again. Don't worry, I will find a way to save you. So, I used the drone to deliver candles and power banks to Abigail's house through the window. I also sent them hot food and water, as well as a large number of warm patches I had stockpiled, twice a day. I ensured that they could eat hot food to preserve their body heat and keep in touch with me. In addition, I gave them an axe so that they could chop up the useless furniture on the second floor to start a fire for warmth. But this was not a long-term solution. The meteorological station predicted that the temperature would drop to -50 degrees in the next 10 days. In this situation, without heating, people could easily freeze to death. Abigail's house was already as cold as an ice cellar on the first day after the power outage. 16. Finally, I thought of sending a soft ladder to Abigail and her husband, allowing them to escape from the second floor window and come to my house. They agreed. When the family downstairs fell asleep at night, they installed the soft ladder. They tied a safety rope around their waists and slowly slid down the soft ladder. Finally, when they reached the ground, Abigail supported her husband and started walking towards my house with great difficulty. The snow had already buried all the buildings on the first floor. I tied a long rope to the drone and let Abigail hold one end to guide them forward. But just as they were about to reach the door of my villa, something unexpected happened. The cunning Andrew caught up with them. Abigail and her husband were walking slowly, And Andrew used a door panel as a snowboard and was about to find their location soon. When I saw him getting closer on the drone's image, my heart was in my throat. In a hurry, I let out the dog Lele that I had adopted. "Stop that man. Don't let him in." I pointed at Andrew's figure on the video, pinning all my hopes on Lele. Although Lele wasn't very strong, it was a pure Chinese rural dog and had great fighting power regardless of its size. It quickly rushed into the snow and pounced towards Andrew's position. At the same time, I controlled the drone to send a signal to Abigail, urging them to hurry up. Finally, they safely entered the anti-theft door. The barking of the dog and Andrew's cursing could still be heard from the drone, but when I turned the drone's camera, I only saw Andrew sitting on the door panel alone, waving a baseball bat, and Lele was nowhere to be seen. Lele, I called it anxiously. I vaguely heard a few whimpers, but still couldn't see where it was. Abigail and her husband had entered the living room, and the anti-theft door was locked again. Andrew angrily returned to Abigail's house. I saw a long trail of blood where he had walked. Tears welled up in my eyes. Abigail came over and held my hand to comfort me. "Don't be sad. Maybe it's still alive, but just can't move for a while. Yes, it's just injured. I will save it." I sent the drone out again, tying pieces of meat to the rope and searching inch by inch in the snow. Finally, just before dawn, I found Lele. It clenched the rope with its last bit of strength and was dragged back to the door by me. It was seriously injured. Both of its front limbs were broken, and its spine had collapsed. It was obvious that Andrew had been extremely cruel. Fortunately, Abigail's husband said that he had volunteered at a rescue station in France and was confident that he could save Lele, 17, when the temperature dropped to -60 degrees. There was no difference between day and night. Through the drone, we saw flames in Abigail's house. When we got closer, we could see figures moving on the second floor. They must have broken the anti-theft door. "Fortunately, you left in advance." I was relieved. Abigail and her husband also felt the same way. Human nature can't stand the test at this time, but God won't let any evil person go. The drone continued to approach the window, and finally, we could see the situation inside clearly. The luxurious house was almost ransacked. They almost burned down the load-bearing walls. Even so, they were still huddled together from the cold, and through my observations over the past few days, Andrew's mother had been lying on the sofa in a fixed position for a long time. 18. One day, Alex noticed my drone. He wrote a few big words on a piece of paper with a burned stick and held it up at the window for me to see. "Mom, I was wrong. Mom, love me again." I was speechless, just as I was about to withdraw the drone. There was a shocking message written on another piece of paper that Alex held up. "Is it only if I kill them that you can forgive me?" My hand shook, and the drone almost crashed. Alex wasn't just talking. The day before they burned all the things that could be burned in Abigail's house, Alex killed his biological parents, influenced by others. Andrew had also been unenthusiastic about his work and had been asking around about the demolition all day long. He took action when they were vomiting and having diarrhea and had no strength left. I didn't watch the whole process, but I recorded it all with the drone, planning to save it and call the police. After killing 2 people, Alex wrote big words with their blood again and held them up for me to see. "They taught me to do that in my previous life. They were the ones who killed you. Mom, I avenged you. Please forgive me. I also want to study hard. I also want to go to university and get a good job. They destroyed me. They deserve to die." My blood seemed to freeze. Alex had also awakened the memories of his previous life. In his previous life, he was God's favored one, someone who is outstanding and favored by fate. Although I had been strict with him since he was a child, he grew up with a lot of praise. But in this life, he had never won a single award since he was a child and had hardly been praised by teachers and his peers. He had been scolded both at home and outside because of his poor academic performance. The huge gap finally made him realize who was really good to him, but it was too late. After killing people, Alex became crazy. He often shouted "Mom" at the window and cursed at the corpses of Andrew and Amelia. Finally, when the temperature dropped to -70 degrees, whether intentionally or because he was confused due to his illness, Alex set Abigail's house on fire and died in the house. 19. The extreme cold lasted for 8 months. The temperature dropped to -100 degrees. In the last period of time, Abigail, her husband, and I, along with the cats and dogs, hid in the thickly insulated basement. The moment the sun shone on the ground again, warmth spread through my body. Looking at the blinding sunlight, tears filled my eyes. If possible, I would rather have never experienced all this. How wonderful life would be without hatred.